Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was the brother of Goku in Dragon Ball. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by GomuGomuRasenganNoSage and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Naruto Uzumaki always found a way to smile even if worse came to worse. Though he was treated badly because of having the Kyuubi sealed within him, which was right now unknown to the boy. He always told himself that one day it would get better. And that was closer to him than he expected. Naruto was 4 years old and was a hyperactive boy. He wore a small orange jumpsuit which fit him perfectly. He had cerulean eyes with 3 whisker marks on each cheek marking his face. What was the most unusual thing though was his blonde furry tail which was wrapped around his waist as a belt. The 4-year-old boy walked into the Hokage's mansion and was surprised to see it to be a little less guarded than usual. Oji-chan. He looked around to see no one there. If the Sandaime Hokage wasn't here then something was definitely up. Boom. What was that? He wondered. A giant crash was heard close to the village. Only seconds later he heard Sarutobi screaming order to the Anbu and a bunch of Jonin. The village grew on fire as Naruto ran into the streets. How did this happen? Naruto voice carried to no one. Suddenly he was picked up by his tail. Weird, what's a Saiyan doing on this planet? Yellow hair, you must be half-breed. A man with black long, spiky hair came into Naruto's vision. The man had a strange armor along with a weird device on his right eye. Out of all his adversaries' attire and appearance, what shocked Naruto the most was the tail wrapped around his waist. Naruto had no idea what the strange man was saying as he tried squirming out the man's grasp. It was to no avail though, as he felt weaker than normal for some odd reason. "Let me go," the young boy shouted. "Naruto." He heard someone familiar yell. The blonde looked around till he found where the voice came from. His face perked up as he saw the Sandaime Hokage running towards him. "You're a persistent bastard, but I'll finish you off now." Roughly dropping Naruto, the man held back his hand which started to glow a bright yellow. Double Sunday. Pushing his hand forward, a yellow beam of energy shot out of his hand, making a beeline towards the Sandaime. "Naruto, run as far as," those were his last words as the energy engulfed him. Naruto looked on with shock and anger. "I made quite an example of him." The unworldly man chuckled. Why you killed him?" Naruto growled. A red chakra coated him. Naruto's features changed, his claws became sharper, his whisker marks became more visible and denser, and his tail's fur stood up. The device on the strange man's head started beeping. "This brat's power is skyrocketing 200,300,400,500,600. The man evilly chuckled, albeit darkly. "Haha, your power level has increased but not enough, but even though this I am still impressed that you managed to increase your so dramatica." His sentence hadn't finished as Naruto took a dive towards his adversary's stomach. He was launched straight into the Hokage's mansion which began to crumble. The now known Saiyan boy's cloak of red chakra vanished. He blinked looking at the damage he had done. His eyes took a look of horror as the man stood up from the rubble that was caused when he smashed into the mansion. Naruto's body froze for a second. "It's over." He looked at the Hokage mountain and turned his gaze to the Sandaime's face. He took a deep breath and ran. The Sandaime's sacrifice to keep him alive would not end in vain. "That brat caught me by surprise," the alien said, his voice obviously on the borderline between calm and anger. "Naruto." The blonde ran through the forest since it was a good place to hide. He knew it like the map was implanted into his brain. Soon after he slowed his pace down a little bit. His tail wiggled around frantically. He was pretty scared. Then he heard a gigantic shout. "When I get my hands on that brat I'll make sure he knows his place." The alien shouted, now his anger was clear to Naruto. Naruto slowly walked backwards in complete fear. "I'm going to die." He then tripped and landed on something soft. Looking around he found himself inside a pod. "This is the perfect hiding spot." He smiled. He took a look at the lowered door. He tried picking it up but it wouldn't budge. That blew his chance. Curiously he looked around the pod. He saw an array of buttons. Maybe if the blonde Jinchuriki put his finger towards a button which was bigger than the others. Pressing plastered a look of relief on his face as the door moved up, shutting entirely. The sound of an engine took place inside the pod. Naruto's eyes widened in disbelief. Out of all the buttons he had pressed the one that started it. Then again, what was left for him here? His face now bared a sad smile. The pod speakers rang out in Naruto's moment of silence. Destination: Planet Earth, estimated arrival 5 hours. Naruto's eyes widened once again as he felt the spaceship fly into the air. And if the blonde heard correct, then he would be going to another planet. Seconds later the pod was racing towards Earth, leaving the Gaki, only to wonder how all this could happen in one day. All Naruto could see in space was darkness, except for a little twinkle of light which Naruto guessed was stars. "I can't believe that all this happened so fast." Naruto began before yawning. I'm tired. He said to himself. His eyelids became heavy. I guess I could take a quick nap. Quickly falling asleep, the young boy could only wonder what would wait for on Earth. His stomach grumbled loudly. He hadn't had anything to eat since the morning, yesterday morning to be specific. He could sure go for some ramen. Maybe they knew about it on Earth. Several hours later on Earth. Son Gohan, son of Goku, wandered through the forest alone. Apparently he had gotten lost, separated from his home since it was bordering the forest of Mount Paozu. It was a bigger than he expected, and most of the place looked the complete same, so he knew it was going to be hard to find his way out. He wore a Japanese child out with the kanji of sun written on the front. On top of his head was an orange sphere with 4 stars. On Earth it was known as a Dragon Ball. Daddy, the little boy quietly said, wandering through the forest. Crash. Something collided into the ground right near Gohan, who ran back frightened of what he had just seen. A small crater could be seen from the site. In the middle was a pod which was emitting steam from its base. The door hatch opened slowly before settling with an abrupt stop. A still frightened Gohan could feel his heart racing. He really wanted his daddy right about now. Minutes passed by as he waited for whatever was in the pod to come out, though nothing ever did. Slowly walking into the crater, Gohan tried to stay as alert as possible. He was only a couple of feet away from the pod. He looked inside slowly, only to find a blonde boy about the same age as him with a brown tail just like his. Hello. Gohan's voice trailed inside. The only thing the boy mumbled was something about ramen as he drooled a little bit. Poking the blonde's tail, he got him to groan a little bit, and soon the blonde's eye blinked twice before he crawled out of the pod. Gohan just stared at the stranger before he heard him say something. Who are you? I am Son Gohan. The boy said slowly. What about yours? Naruto truthfully didn't want to say his. After all, with what had happened to him, he wasn't sure who he could trust, but something was different about Gohan. Maybe it was just instinct, but he could tell that could trust him, even if he just met the boy. Putting a grin on his face, he perked up. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. The newly announced boy took a look at his surroundings. It seemed he landed in a forest. Gohan, could you tell me where I am? You're in a forest at Mount Paozu. The boy replied. Seeing as the Jinchuriki was silent, Gohan spoke up. I have a good idea. Naruto stood there waiting for Gohan to speak up. Inside, Naruto was pretty happy. He was on Earth for less than an hour, and he already had an acquaintance, whatever that was. Naruto, neither Gohan knew. How about we play together? The young boy smiled. Minutes later. I feel like I could eat a horse. Naruto laughed along with his new friend. Naruto stopped when he saw Gohan shiver in fear. Gohan and Naruto were both exhausted from their game of tag. It was a close one, but in the end Naruto won. And then Naruto? Gohan said as he backed away slowly. He pointed his finger to something behind Naruto. The blonde followed the line of sight that his finger made and looked behind him to see an orange animal. He gulped as he noticed it was a tiger. Gohan fell to the ground and stopped moving while trying to make his breath slow down. Luckily, Naruto caught on and copied what he did. They were both playing dead. The lion slowly approached the 4-year-olds. Surprisingly, it passed Naruto, who gave a silent sigh. If Gohan can stay still long enough, then we might be able to make it through this. The lion stared at Gohan's unmoving body, or more likely Gohan's hat, which had some weird ball with 4 stars on it. The lion picked it up and ran away with it. Alright, we did. Dadabeo. Naruto grinned. He saw a teardrop from his friend. That was my daddy's. Gohan half shouted and half whined. The next thing surprised the blonde. With a loud cry, the son of Goku dashed at high speed at the direction the lion ran away to. Naruto laughed at the scene before deciding to follow him. I finally found you. Naruto heard. His eyes widened. It was the same voice as the person he had met at the village. Naruto slowly turned his head and gulped. You think I'd let you get away? The man gave an evil laugh. He grabbed Naruto by the back of his shirt. Leave me alone. Naruto said while trying to get out of the man's grasp. I guess that will be the last time I see Gohan. Naruto sadly thought. The person tapped the device on his face. Where are you, Kakarot? The man who was known as Raditz smiled as his device beeped before flying in the air and launching off towards the person he called Kakarot. Within several minutes the flight had ceased and the man descended to the ground. What? The Naruto turned his head to the sound of the voice. He found a green-skinned person with 2 antennae of his forehead. He wore a purple guy with and a top-layering cape which was white. On his head was a white hat with purple on the top of it. His eyes scanned from the newly arrived person to the boy with the tail. Who are you and what business do you have with me? The green-skinned man could feel sweat dripping down his neck as he spoke, and Naruto could hear a little bit of nervousness in his voice. It seems I was looking for someone, but I got the wrong person. Raditz said as he gently tapped his scouter. Perhaps I should kill some time though. Raditz chuckled at his joke, which to Naruto wasn't that funny. Increased sweat dropped down the green man's neck. But since your power level is far weaker than mine, I'll allow you to give me your best shot. He dropped Naruto, who slowly walked towards the Namekian's side. Meanwhile, Piccolo knew the risk of not taking the offer and quickly got ready his attack. A yellow manifestation of energy formed in his hands. Gohan. Here we are. Goku said with joy as he and Gohan got off the Nimbus. Gohan though didn't hear what his father had spoken because he was in deep thought about his blonde-haired friend. After his father found him, he had told him about Naruto, so they searched through the forest for him, but they didn't find the boy. That's when Goku had remembered something that Kai once told him. Something about Gohan's imagination being big and he was just imagining Naruto, but Gohan knew that couldn't be true. Gohan, Gohan, Gohan. Goku repeated until Gohan was brought from his thoughts. Naruto. Naruto gave a sigh of relief at the events which had just transpired right when Raditz was about to attack Piccolo. He stopped and muttered something about carrots before leaving without a moment to spare. Fortunately, he had forgotten about Naruto, who silently hoped that he never saw him again. Hey kid, Piccolo started catching the blonde's attention. The Namekian was breathing heavily at the scene which could have led him to his death. You're coming with me. What? Naruto replied, not hiding his immediate shock. Don't play dumb with me now, grab a hold of me. Naruto listened immediately, not choosing to object to his words. Naruto had gotten used to flying with someone, so the sensation just naturally came. It was weird at first, but he soon got the feel of it. Mister. What's your name? It's Piccolo. He heard Naruto laugh. What's so funny, kid? Nothing, I just think your name is cool. Naruto grinned. Piccolo turned his head after seeing Naruto smile. And what is your name? Uzumaki Naruto. The Jinchuriki's grin widened further. I have another friend already. I haven't even known you for an hour and you're already saying I'm your friend. Kid, I'm not your friend, I'm a monster. The rest of the trip to wherever Piccolo was taking. Naruto was silent the rest of the way. Naruto's spirit of making Piccolo his friend didn't waver. There it is. He heard Piccolo announce. Odd as it was, Piccolo's destination was a small island with a house that had the words "Came" printed on it. What is this plan? Naruto's mouth was covered as Piccolo took him to the side of house. On the front one would see several people, eyes widening. Goku has a brother. A bald short man wearing a similar guy to Goku shouted in shock. No way. A blue-headed woman in shock whispered. Naruto took a chance to look at the people. He found two familiar faces in Gohan and Raditz. The young boy couldn't tell if he was happy or scared at the facts. You see, Kakarot, you are not from this world. You are from planet Vegeta and you were sent on this planet to destroy it. Raditz continued on. No, that can't be true. The one known as Goku said. Daddy, Gohan stuttered, trying to get out of the blue-haired woman known as Bulma's grasp. Eventually, Gohan managed to free himself and ran up to his father. Gohan, no. His father shouted, his eyes were wide. His orange guy and spiky hair blew in the wind. So is that your son? Raditz guessed, holding back an evil smirk. No, he isn't. Goku half growled and half spoke. Stop lying, I can see his tail. And so what if he is? Maybe I should take your son in exchange for you. Raditz chuckled and slowly approached him. I won't let you lay a finger on him. The Earth's defender shouted and got ready to go into defensive or offensive at any given time. Sure, Raditz was on a whole other league of his own, but if he stood around doing nothing, then it would be the same as watching his friends and family die. In an instant, Goku's now known brother appeared right behind the defender of the Earth. Naruto watched grimacing as a hard knee was sent to Goku's stomach. Naruto had seen about and added force to intervene, but Piccolo held him back. Naruto tried to get out of Piccolo's grasp. Naruto turned his attention back to the scene and watched with even more anger as Raditz picked Gohan in a rough manner. That was when Naruto finally had enough. Leave Gohan. Naruto started catching everyone's attention alone. Raditz turned his head towards the voice and started a dark laugh. Look who's come running home, at this point I thought I would have to search for you myself. Raditz's sarcastic tone didn't hide in his voice. Though his insolence would pay, too busy laughing at his quote, he seemed to not have noticed Naruto running up to him. Bulma, is it only me or does that blonde boy have a tail? Krillin, the bald-headed man, said with nervousness in his voice. I see it too. Bulma quietly replied. Lost it? Goku thought, struggling to move his head up from the pain Raditz inflicted on him. Gohan calmed down a little after seeing Naruto trying to help him. Raditz had finally caught attention on Naruto. Said blonde had already jumped into the air hoping to get a strike in, but his Saiyan enemy grabbed him. Naruto blinked at his fail of an attempt. Everyone, maybe even Goku, took a chance to sweat drop at the blonde's actions. He could talk big, but he couldn't back it up. Realizing the magnitude of the situation, Gohan and Naruto stared at each other, and if there was a person good enough they could see them mentally nod. The two had become good friends fast. Maybe it was because they could tell that they could both trust each other really. But whatever, it was good for both of them. Naruto opened his mouth a little bit and told Gohan what to do. With a tug to make Raditz's hand swing back and forth. Their plan had begun. The next phase was biting Raditz' hand, which was done quite fast for them both. Raditz snarled at the bite inflicted on him. How could I let that brat get another surprise attack on me? His anger flared up at the thought. Too busy to notice a change in Raditz's demeanor were the Z fighters with the addition of Naruto and Gohan. Thanks, Naruto. Gohan praised his Jinchuriki friend. There was nothing to it. Naruto said as he blushed at the praise and sheepishly scratched his head. Gohan then turned his attention towards his dad. Daddy. Gohan ran into his father's arms. Goku smiled and with relief. Naruto, is it? Goku began. You have my thanks. Naruto grinned and Goku laughed at the accomplishment until it was abruptly stopped and his eyes widened, and for the third time today by the same man, Naruto was grabbed by the tail. But you should be thanking him. Raditz said, picking Naruto by the tail, making what he would call good use of the inexperienced Demi-Saiyan's weakness. Naruto felt a throbbing pain in his back of his neck, not knowing that the pure-blooded Saiyan had struck him in that spot. Naruto struggled to stay from being knocked out, but with his enemy holding by his tail, his now-known weakness soon succumbed to unconsciousness. Thanks to him my offer now stands until sunset. Raditz said and proceeded to knee Naruto repeatedly. He's an monster, Krillin thought with fear. How could he do this to a poor little child? Bulma thought, covering her mouth in shock. I fear that maybe even Goku might not have the ability to beat an opponent of this caliber, Master Roshi thought, watching the scene. Stop that! Everyone turned to see Gohan say. Stop it right now. The Demi-Saiyan ran towards the person holding his friend who was in pain. Raditz's scouter beeped, causing his attention to stir. A mere power level of 1000 will not do you any good. Too bad for him, as he didn't take notice a white beam of energy emitted from Gohan. Warning, Raditz said, looking at his scouter. Must be a malfunction. He brushed it aside even though the warning stayed. It was at this point that he had finally seen what Gohan was doing. Incredible. What immense power coming from a child, Piccolo thought, still staying hidden. Wow, that is some serious power. I guess Gohan really is his father's son. Raditz seemed to have taken full impact of the attack, or maybe not, because the blinding white light from Gohan's strike negated everyone from seeing Raditz try to dodge the attack at last second. The son of Goku landed on the ground and turned his head in a confused manner. The young couldn't figure out how he even managed to pull that off. Gohan did that. Goku wondered, but also felt some pride at his son's powers. Today must not be my day. The backhand chop made its way to Gohan's neck, leaving him with the same fate of Naruto. I must say these two half-breeds put up a better fight, Kakarot. But in the end their efforts were futile. I'll be leaving now. Picking up Gohan by his hair, the pure-blooded Saiyan flew off. Gohan, I have to save Gohan, Goku said while struggling to stand. Goku, you can't go to fight him in this condition. His lifelong best friend told him. Then how about we both take him on? Piccolo said, to the shock of everyone. Piccolo? Why would you want to help Goku? You saw how powerful that person is for one to take on alone. The Namekian gave, stating one reason. Second of all, I can't let him ruin my plans of world domination. Of course, Krillin sighed. I knew that Piccolo had no chance of becoming good. Naruto and Gohan. Naruto groaned, awaking from his sleep. Once again he found himself in the space pod. That's when he remembered what had happened. He heard a groan emit from someone near him and found his friend just waking up too. Naruto, is that you? The voice of Gohan spoke to him. The boy nodded and the two kids felt relieved that neither one of them were dead. For now they could tell that they were stuck there, but they both hoped that Goku would be coming soon. I hear my daddy. Outside, Goku was going head-to-head with his brother. Meanwhile, Piccolo was charging an attack, one that he had planned to use on his temporary ally for the time. With a steady fighting stance, Goku stared down his enemy and also his brother. Turning his head back a little, he could see Piccolo charging his attack. Alright. The hero said. With a boost from his legs, he launched off. He first went for a punch, which was parried with a hand. Goku then went for leg sweep, only to be kicked up into the air. Though instead of falling to the ground like a normal person would he manage to suspend himself there, he was flying. What do you see, Gohan? Naruto questioned, wanting to get out of the space pod already. My daddy. He smiled with tons of relief. I think he's fighting that guy with some green man. That must be Piccolo. Gohan whispered, he could have sworn that he heard it before. I've heard that name from my parents. My dad said he was a really bad man. He seemed nice when I met him. Let me see. Naruto's cerulean eyes took the look of awe at the view he got. Your dad's amazing. There's some people that would classify as an understatement. With a slow pace, Goku cupped his hands together and drew them back. Concentrating, he allowed his Kai, the energy used on Earth, to focus in his hands. He took a heavy breath and began his speech. A blue glow filled his hands, showing the immense energy he was putting into the attack. Me. Once again, Raditz's counter beeped with a warning. His powers increasing dramatically. Cocking his head to where the Namekian was just like his comrade, his power was increasing too. Me, the hero thrust his hand forward, launching his famous attack. Ha! The Kamehameha was Goku's signature technique, learned none other than from Master Roshi. For the old man it took well over 50 years to master it. For Goku it only took minutes after seeing Roshi use to manage to do one. This time, not taking any, the Saiyan warrior tried dodging the wave of blue energy. He tried, but to his shock and surprise his brother twisted the blast. They thought they were saved, but if they were to look back outside, they would see Raditz take on Goku's Kamehameha with his bare hands. Gohan looked out the window with a huge hope that his father had defeated his uncle. Though the view before him ruined what he had thought was happening. The bruised and battered Goku lay on the ground, and applied on his stomach with extra force was Raditz's foot. "You fool, you should never be so forgiving to your enemy." Naruto watched Gohan's expression varying from sad, worried, and anger. Unknown to Naruto though, Gohan's power level was increasing his angry mood state. Gohan tapping his shoulder didn't get his attention. "Don't hurt." Naruto had to push his ear closely to hear the whisper. Back outside, the same view as before still. "I might as well finish you now." His brother stopped very abruptly with slight annoyance in his eyes. For the third time in less than an hour his scouter blared with a warning. Suddenly a shattering sound surrounded the area as, to everyone's amazement, little Gohan emerged out of a broken pod while his friend who was also in there stood in awe at his friend's power. "Gee, Gohan." Naruto tried calling his friend out. Their formidable foe was just shocked at the power. "How could a little boy be stronger than me?" Piccolo silently gazed at Gohan and Naruto. If what that Saiyan said was true and Goku's kid being able to use that power, then both must have an extreme amount of potential. "Don't hurt my daddy." Naruto blinked his eyes rapidly to make sure he saw things correctly. His friend flew straight towards that radish guy. Pun intended. "Not this time." Raditz smirked while sidestepping to dodge, and just as Gohan soared past him he grabbed him by his shirt, stopping his attack state. The now fully conscious son of Goku stared around, not knowing how he had gotten out of the space pod. He then realized that someone was holding him. But it wasn't his father as he expected. Naruto pulled his hands. He had seen Gohan make 2 feats of strength, but here Naruto was not being able to do anything. He couldn't stand it, and while people he had made friends with suffered, he would be stuck on the sidelines. "Am I just weak?" he wondered. "Let me lend you power." Naruto mentally perked his ears and the voice repeated. It was persuasive enough to almost catch Naruto and lure him towards what would be strength. "No, if I'm gonna save my friends then I'm gonna use my own power." He yelled as just what he said surged through his veins. Just as I thought, Piccolo thinking process continued with correct predictions. Naruto ran straight up towards Raditz and punched him in the face, causing the Saiyan to spit up some blood. Proceeding, Naruto gave him several punches to his gut before kicking him in his shins. "You bastard, now you're really in for it now." Raditz yelled, dropping Gohan once again. His fist leaned back, purple energy leaking out of it. His cocked fist lowered though as the feeling of weakness overcame his body. Goku, his brother, was holding on to him in a full Nelson position. "No forgiveness now." Goku yelled in anger. "No forgiveness now." Naruto moved out the way looking at Piccolo who smirked. Purple, green, and yellow was sparking like electricity in his head. "Goku, it's done." Piccolo looked at the position his rival was in and quickly nodded at it, already understanding the situation. Raditz continued to struggle in Goku's hold. "You can't do this to your own brother." Raditz begged. The tides had taken a dramatic turn in this battle. "I promise not to harm any humans and leave this planet at once." Goku didn't budge an inch, he held still, firm in place. "Piccolo. Now." Naruto looked up at Goku with admiration. He was sacrificing himself for better of Earth, his friends, and his family. Special beam cannon. Piccolo launched his attack, which took the form of a single beam of potent and concentrated Kai. Once it reached Raditz it pierced through his body, next piercing straight through Goku. The attack drilled its way into not one body but 2. Raditz staggered to the ground along with Goku not far away from him, who fell on his back with a smile. Raditz smirked and chuckled. "You may have beaten me, but at a price of Kakarot. No worries, your death will remain in vain. We have the Dragon Balls. It won't be long until his friends wish him back." Piccolo smirked as Raditz looked at him with disbelief. It seems Piccolo would get the last laugh. Naruto smiled while rushing up to Goku. Goku smiled at the young boy, slowly ruffling his hair. "You were pretty brave back there. Thanks for not saving Gohan not once but twice." Naruto gave a smile and thumbs up. Before turning his attention to Piccolo and Raditz's conversation. "Thanks for the information. This device on my head is called a scouter. Not only does it detect power, but also it acts as a transmitter." "And so what?" "That means my other 2 Saiyan comrades, even stronger than me, have heard everything you just told me about these so-called Dragon Balls. In 1 year they'll come and avenge me and then wish me back to life." Raditz chuckled. "Shut up." Piccolo yelled, bringing his hand down, ending the evil Saiyan's life. Sweat dripped down his neck. 1 year, 1 short year to train. Piccolo looked at Naruto and Gohan before a helicopter of some sorts landed down next to Goku. Goku? Krillin yelled, running up to his friend. Naruto backed away to let them have their moment. Krillin, so this is how it feels to be dying, huh? Goku chuckled, his smile was still spread wide on his face. It was too small to be called a grin though. He was dying, he found it hard to move most of his body. Goku, Master Roshi said softly and quietly. His student was dying and there was nothing he could do about it. Goku, Bulma said in an even a softer voice. Don't worry about it, Goku. Everything is going to be alright. Krillin said, trying to look on the bright side. Goku was having none of that though. Goku, you heard right. Piccolo said, all the while approaching him. Yep, 2 Saiyans stronger than Raditz. 1 year, Goku said between pauses. Well everyone, it looks like my time is up. Please tell Gohan that daddy's coming back and not to worry, please. Goku croaked his last words. Even in death, Goku always put his family and friends first. He was one of the most pure-hearted people Naruto would ever meet, literally. Goku's friends gave a moment of silence for their friend before he disappeared. This must be Kami's doing. Piccolo guessed the geezer of a man always had a plan. There's no doubt that he heard what was going on here. Wait. 2 Saiyans. Krillin screamed at the top of his lungs. There's more. Yeah, and they'll be coming in about a year. Funny thing is that they're stronger than Goku's brother. Piccolo said, approaching Naruto again. The group was left in silence till once again Krillin spoke. Then I'll train. If Goku's going to fight them, then I will too. By the way, Piccolo, where did that kid come from? Bulma asked. Her curiosity had gotten the best of her. She was pointing at Naruto, who turned his head away from her gaze. Goku's brother brought him here. Other than that, I don't much about him. Piccolo spoke. But it seems that he knows Gohan. Start speaking up. Naruto stared at Piccolo for a while before speaking. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. He announced bow slightly to them. Before that guy took me, I wasn't on this planet. He invaded my home planet though and took me cause of my tail. Naruto wiggled it to show proof it was real. He has a tail just like Goku's. Bulma said softly before her eyes widened. Hey Naruto, have you ever looked at the moon on your home planet? Naruto nodded. Has anything different changed about you after you looked at it? The hermit spoke. Well, my heart did start beating faster for a while and then my tail started moving like crazy until I looked away. Naruto answered, full in truth. But anyway, I managed to get into one of those pods and it took me here where I met Gohan. After that I lost Gohan and that man found me again. That's where I met. That pretty much summed up the rest of Naruto's story. So Piccolo just took you here like that? Naruto nodded. Piccolo, I would have never thought. Krillin said, shaking his head in shame for the Namekian. The vein grew on Piccolo's forehead. If you're done joking around, then you can start training. Well, what about Naruto and Gohan? Krillin asked. Piccolo in turn picked up both Naruto and Gohan by the back of their shirts. No way. I'll be training them. They have tons of potential, they may even be stronger than Goku. Naruto grinned at that statement. Said I have potential. One thing was for sure, Naruto was for sure he was going to get stronger. But what about Kai? What do I tell her? Piccolo shrugged and flew off, leaving a frantic Krillin, Roshi and Bulma wondering what to tell the woman. Are you really going to train us? Naruto asked. His confirmation came at the nod of Piccolo. I'm gonna become even stronger than Dadabeo. Piccolo remained silent the rest of the trip. Not before long though they arrived at the grounds. It was a place where he had formerly trained, preparing to fight Goku once again. He dropped Naruto and Gohan into a pond so he could look. Naruto. Gohan called, indicating that he was now fully awake. What happened? Naruto held a sad smile as he pointed to Piccolo to explain the events that transpired. Needless to say, the explanation left Gohan crying before being snapped at by Piccolo. I'm sure your father has told you about the Dragon Balls countless times and their powers to bring back, revive the dead once. Piccolo said, closing his eyes. In about a year or so your friends are going to bring him back so he can help us fight the Saiyans coming. Piccolo's eyes snapped open. Meanwhile, the two of you are going to be training under me. Why me? I've never trained before. Gohan said along with a nod from Naruto. Piccolo picked the boy up slightly roughly before swinging his arm to the direction of a slightly small mountain. Naruto panicked watching his friend being hurled in the air. He was only a few meters from colliding with the mountain before. Gohan's body was enveloped in Kai and a beam of said energy shot out of him and destroyed the mountain. Now you see what I mean. You have powers dwelling inside of you, but they only react upon emotion. Naruto looked down at his hands in complete awe. Is this why the villagers hated me so much? Naruto hadn't known the truth about why he was treated the way he was in Konoha, but one thing that was definite would be that he would use his powers to protect his precious people. Gohan, who had gained his composure, now stood next to Naruto. The two children just stared at Piccolo, who in return stared back. What do you want? He shouted in rage. What do we do now? Gohan asked. So how do we train? Naruto continued. Piccolo hovered off the ground and turned his back from the two. I'll be leaving for 6 months and during that time the two of you will be surviving in the wild. You're joking, right? Naruto said, expressing a little panic in his voice. Naruto tugged on his cape. You wouldn't do that, would you? Gohan was reacting in a very similar way. I want my daddy. These were the words shouted multiple times by the son of Goku before a very enraged Piccolo was forced to put a stop to it. Listen up. By this time Naruto had stopped tugging on Piccolo's cape and Gohan had stopped whining. If you two can't survive for that long, then I'm afraid my judgment about you was wrong. Piccolo was serious now, making both Demi-Saiyan's demeanor change. Do whatever you can to survive or else you can say goodbye to this planet or everyone else on it. With those words floating through Naruto and Gohan's minds, Piccolo flew off to begin his own independent training. Gohan Naruto spoke, breaking the silence. Let's do it. Gohan stood up and looked at Naruto. Trusts us to do it. So if he says we need to survive, then let's do it. Aren't you scared? Gohan asked, because he certainly was. Are you kidding me? Of course I am, but if we don't do it, then your father's sacrifice will be useless. Gohan gripped his fist slightly, remembering what he was told. Alright then Naruto, we're surviving. Piccolo stopped his flight and looked at where Naruto and Gohan were. Good, now both of you better survive or else this planet is finished. With newfound determination flooding through Naruto and Gohan, a year of training added to the arsenal of the Z fighters and Kami's plan with Goku taking effect, do the Earth Special Forces have what it takes to take on the Saiyans? The world can only hope, because if not they can kiss their home goodbye. What lies within Chapter 2? Training kids isn't Piccolo's forte. Month time skip. And Gohan pant, do you think we managed to escape that dinosaur? Naruto heaved and decided to take the moment to sit down. Gohan, who also seemed tired from running, was holding a very large egg. I can't believe you made us do that. The boy spoke. Naruto grinned at his friend. We managed to get it though. Naruto was wearing a plain white undershirt and black pants. He preferred it to be orange, but Piccolo had told him before he left that wearing orange in the wild would attract a lot of attention from the animals. Piccolo had said it as if he had read it from a wildlife survival encyclopedia. Though the fact Piccolo had made left the blonde disappointed, he listened anyway. Gohan's clothes in comparison to the blonde were that he was wearing a plain white undershirt along with dark green pants. We need to start a fire before we can even start cooking it. After saying his statement aloud, Gohan turned his attention to Naruto. Do you know how to start a fire? Sort of. Naruto said. Growing up was one rollercoaster after another and the Raditz incident was one of the highest dips so far. He had sort gotten used to living in the forest surrounding Konoha on some nights, so naturally of course he knew how to make a fire. The only difference was that where he and Gohan were, there animals which would not hesitate to attack, unlike Konoha. Alright, I'll get some firewood. Gohan replied. Both of them were pretty reliable. Watching Gohan walk away and head over to the first tree he could spot, he watched Gohan punch a tree and after several repeats the tree finally came down. Over the course of about 1 month Naruto and Gohan had enough power to at least put down an average-sized tree with a series of punches and kicks. Yet after 1 month the idea had just struck their mind to build a fire. Naruto moved his eyes to the dinosaur egg and blinked a few times at what came to his vision. The dinosaur egg was cracked open. Naruto moved closer, making sure he wasn't hallucinating. Gohan. Gohan came over, dropping the wood he gathered before his eyes landed on the egg. What happened to the egg? He shouted. I don't know. Naruto's sentence was cut off by a light dinosaur sound. Squawk. Naruto's attention turned to the sound. It wasn't to his right or left. It wasn't up in the air either. So he looked down. Squawk. There was a baby pterodactyl on the ground. The baby tilted its head and looked at Naruto. There goes dinner. Gohan said while his stomach rumbled. He was definitely the son of Goku, alright. Naruto's sweat dropped before watching the pterodactyl use its claws and legs to grab Gohan's pants. Shrugging, Gohan picked up the dinosaur and put it on top of his head. The dinosaur moved Gohan's hair around till it felt comfortable and let itself fall asleep. So what are we going to eat now? Naruto asked Gohan. More fish. Gohan said, and he slumped. They had been eating fish almost every day. The worst thing about it was that they ate it raw. Naruto let out a depressed sigh before he and Gohan made way towards the river. Few hours later. The full moon glimmered with a light dim in its place up in the sky. Gohan and Naruto usually would have been asleep, but since they could make a fire, they could stay up longer. Let's get some more firewood before we go to bed, Gohan. You sure it's pretty dark outside? Gohan spoke softly. Come on, Gohan, there's nothing we can't handle. We keep getting stronger each day. Minutes later both boys had a bundle of wood. Naruto, look, it's the moon. Gohan said in awe. Naruto took a turn to look up and his heart stopped, and in one quick fashion, Gohan dropped the pile of wood. Their heartbeats grew louder as it pumped slowly each second. They both quickly began to grow mass amounts of hair, going into some metamorphosis. Their clothes ripped off as they grew, and suddenly they were gigantic and they had massive differences compared to a few minutes ago. For starters, they looked like giant apes, which was the simplest explanation a person could give. With mighty roars they broke down huge rocks. They had lost their consciousness to control their bodies. Mass chaos was bound to strike the region. Roar. Not far away was Piccolo, who was disturbed in the middle of his meditation. "What the heck is that?" the Namekian shouted. Over in the distance, to his horror, he saw two giant apes wreaking havoc upon the mountains. He charged straight in before remembering something Raditz had said. "We Saiyans have tails, and when we look at the full moon because of our tails we turn into giant apes." If that's true, that must be Gohan and Naruto, Piccolo thought, sweat rolling down his head. He looked at the moon and smirked. So that must mean if I destroy the moon they'll deform. To any other man that achievement would be crazy and impossible, but Piccolo was a whole other person or species. Putting both his pointer and middle finger together and placing them on his forehead, he charged up an attack he had only just used for the first time against a real opponent a month ago. It was ironic that the move was supposed to be used to kill Goku, and that's what it did. Though instead of helping Piccolo achieve his goal of world domination, it helped Goku out. Kai sparked to life in his fingertips. The more Kai that Piccolo fueled into the attack, the louder sound the sparks produced. Piccolo smirked when he finished charging. Back over to where Naruto and Gohan were, one of the apes undistinguishable to who it was cocked their head to Piccolo's direction. It opened its mouth and fired a large amount of pure Kai. Piccolo looked on the attack, which was rapidly closing in on him. Piccolo had two options: shoot his attack at the ape's attack and hopes he survived it, or shoot his attack at the moon and hoped he survived the attack. His options were very limited. Damn it. Piccolo cursed before shooting his own attack towards the moon. The moon was destroyed, but the situation was not over for Piccolo. He braced himself for the incoming attack. The second the attack met its target, smoke arose, and the area surrounding Piccolo was showing major signs of destruction. Piccolo made his way through the smoke and breathed heavily. Imagine if a trained Saiyan turned into that thing, Piccolo thought with horror. That would be able to destroy entire planets. Piccolo gulped before slowly hovering towards the duo. If these kids think at this time they could even beat the Saiyans, then they're two idiots. Naruto and Gohan were naked, not a single piece of clothing was saved when they transformed. "I'm going to give you two this one favor and that's it." He zapped both of them with a beam, and like magic they both had clothes on them. Both were now wearing a guise similar to Goku's. The only difference was, except for the Kame kanji on the circle, it was Piccolo's. Other than that, the rest was pretty much the same. "Oh yeah, I almost forgot," Piccolo said before pulling their tails out. "Now with the moon gone, those Saiyans will have slight disadvantage." Piccolo smirked. He hovered high and then took off into the night, not to be seen by Naruto and Gohan again till their training with him. A month later. The little pterodactyl that had hatched wouldn't even leave the duo's presence. They had tried putting it back to its mother nest of sorts, but needless to say the pterodactyl found its way back each time. So the two had kept it and decided to name it. "Sanchi, come get breakfast," Gohan called. Sanchi had grown and was now beginning its stage as a juvenile. It was up, still slightly smaller than average juvenile pterodactyls, but it was growing. As the dinosaur ate, Gohan and Naruto prepared to get their own breakfast. "We're going to the old berry tree this time?" Naruto questioned while stretching. "Yay, but we better be careful or else that dinosaur gonna be on alert," Gohan replied. "It wouldn't be bad to try and fight it, you know," Naruto stated. Gohan nodded his head before continuing his own set of stretches. "It's too dangerous." Naruto sighed his fifth time in a row trying to convince Gohan, but it always was the same thing. Naruto seriously wondered where he got that from. It definitely wasn't from his father. Alright, Naruto could tell Goku loved to fight. Mount Paozu. In the little mountains of a young lady was doing some housework before sneezing. "My little Gohan must be thinking about me," she thought. "As soon as he gets back he's going straight into his studies, he has some catching up to do." She walked the house for a minute continuing her work before glancing upon a picture of Goku and Krillin when they were younger. Didn't Krillin say something about another boy about Gohan's age? She nodded, recalling upon the encounter. Didn't he say he was Gohan's friend? Kai's face perked up at that. Even though this, she forgot one important part Krillin had told her. 2 months. 4 months had passed since the beginning of Naruto and Gohan's training. The two had grown stronger physically and somewhat mentally. And as for Sanchi, she had gotten too big for the two Demi-Saiyan, so she had flown off somewhere in the mountains to find a mate and have a family. "Man, I've been craving some ramen." Gohan, Naruto groaned. Gohan chuckled at the boy's dismay. "Ramen doesn't grow in the wild, you know." Naruto made no intentions of laughing. "But anyways, it's so boring." Naruto could agree with that. Running around in the wild wasn't the most exciting this to do for 4 months. Gohan, Naruto called out in boredom. "How about we have a spar?" Naruto grinned. Let's test out how strong we've gotten without S help. Naruto stood up and got into a stance, a very sloppy stance. Although he had some power, Naruto wasn't trained properly, unlike the Z fighters. The same went for Gohan, who had never even gotten the chance to really fight. Alright, fine. Gohan shouted gleefully. He sure had grown over the course of 4 months, and although he was unsure if he wasn't sure if he was strong enough to take the Saiyans on, but he was willing to try. Gohan took a sloppy stand similar to Naruto's. No holding back. Naruto announced. Seconds after this, his eyes became serious. Gohan meanwhile was having similar thoughts. This time I have to see how much stronger I've gotten. Naruto made the first move with a swift dash towards Gohan. He brought his fist back and brought it close to his friend's face as he neared. Gohan made a very quick side step and proceeded with a sweep kick, taking Naruto's feet off the ground. The blonde rolled out of the way and stood up and countered Gohan's next parry of attacks. During this, Naruto found an opening and grabbed Gohan's arm. Next, he threw the half Saiyan aside. Picking up his leg, Naruto landed a side kick to Gohan. The son of Goku wobbled back slowly. That kick sure packed a punch, air kick. Gohan regained his balance and went back into a stance. Gohan walked up slowly towards Naruto with a serious look on his face. He then suddenly started running before he completely passed him and ran towards a cliff. Gohan then jumped onto the wall part of the cliff and used it as a platform to propel himself towards Naruto. Naruto smirked. Gohan's really smart. In the sight of this situation, Naruto ran up and jumped into the air to meet Gohan. Meters before collision, Gohan twisted his body, moving his course away from the Jinchuriki. Before he knew, Naruto found himself falling. Meanwhile, Gohan landed on the ground and ran up to move over Naruto's landing location. Then, before the blonde could comprehend what was happening, an uppercut made its way to him, sending him flying. Naruto fell to the ground in agony, but he was not done yet. Gohan, you're really strong, but let's end this already, Naruto heaved. You're really strong too, but I won't let you win. Gohan also heaved. Both of them began running straight into each other. No tricks, decoys or false starts. They brought a single fist back. The leaves rustled in the area they were in. Both boys made their ways to each other and went to a parry of attacks. Back and forth the attacks landed on each other. Both were showing no mercy, giving it their all. If one was to look closely or was an expertise at fighting, they could tell Naruto and Gohan were fading out slowly, surely but slowly. Their attacks started slowing down at a considerate. They heaved their hardest. They had truly gone a lot. They were exhausted. Gohan brought his fist back for a final attack. Naruto smiled weakly and mimicked the motion. This would end it. The fist made dead contact with each other's face. Gohan took in a breath full of air and fell. So he lost. Nope, Naruto fell to the ground as well, equally as exhausted. Gohan laughed weakly and closed his very heavy eyelids. Naruto turned his head towards Gohan and put himself in deep thought. We're really strong, but it makes me wonder if we can even beat the Saiyans, Naruto thought and began slowly drifting asleep. Month later. Naruto, only a couple more days and we complete what asked us. Gohan said with glee. We did it. Naruto yelled happily. Naruto raised his hand and Gohan slapped it as they gave each other a high five. The fire that burned crinkled and sparked as they two Saiyans couldn't fall asleep. They were anxious to get training started, but a little while was all it took to stop the two Demi-Saiyans' jitters. Minutes only passed for Naruto and Gohan before sunlight dawned upon them and light reached the crack of their eyes. And Naruto, wake up. Gohan called to his friend. Huh? Naruto half spoke and yawned. Naruto opened his eyes and was taken to the sight of someone with their back turned to them. Naruto immediately recognized the cape attached to the man's back. Not to mention the bigger than average ears or the green skin. So you're finally awake, Piccolo said, breaking the silence. He turned so that he was now facing the Demi-Saiyans. You've completed my first part of the training for surviving, but from here on in you're training under me. Gohan nodded his head and gulped. Really strict Naruto, on the other hand, was doing the exact opposite. The blonde was closing the distance between him and Piccolo rather quickly while grinning. You were the one who gave us these uniforms, aren't you? Naruto said, the grin now fully marking his features. Piccolo grunted and Naruto's grin grew even bigger, if that was possible. You are a nice guy. Gohan thought it over a minute before agreeing with his friend. You really are a nicer person than I thought. Gohan said before continuing. You seemed really mean at first, but you two shut up, this is not the time. Piccolo screamed, releasing all his frustration upon the two. Ahaha. Gohan lightly chuckled before walking back slowly. Hahaha. Naruto laughed lightly also and sheepishly scratched his head. Minutes later. After Piccolo finally cooled down, he prepared to give them their first bit of training under the proclaimed demon. Now I'm going to teach both of you how to use your energy. First I have to explain the basics to you. Kai is energy in every single being and it is your life force. If one is able to draw it out and manipulate, one can use it in several ways. Piccolo cupped his hands together and slowly let energy manifest on his hands. Our two Demi-Saiyans looked at the ball of energy in Piccolo's hands with awe and determination. Their true training would begin right here and they wouldn't let anyone down. Piccolo sat down crisscross style and Naruto and Gohan mimicked the action. Close your eyes. Follow the man's procedures. They now closed their eyes. Now you have to feel the energy flowing through your body. Once you find it you have to harness it and make it grow throughout your body. It only took about an hour for the two to finally achieve what was asked of. They were half Saiyans, so it was probably normal that they could achieve it, though the only part they couldn't achieve is control. It won't be possible just yet to achieve any energy-based. Piccolo said while breaking Naruto's excitement in the process. Wow, this is awesome. Gohan yelled with excitement. His energy moved excitedly and his body fluctuating with the pass of each second. Naruto's was in a similar state, just a little more negatively potent, which Piccolo picked up on but tossed it aside. Are we going to learn how to fly next? Naruto asked with pure joy. First of all, I want you to cease the rapid flow of Kai in your body. Piccolo's response was met with the innocent questioning faces of our two Demi-Saiyans. Sighing, Piccolo put it in terms they could understand. The Kai in your body is too fast, slow it down. Nodding, the two tried slowing the flow, a very hard task without proper control. By the time they actually managed to slow it was already sunset. Both boys took in deep breath. Controlling energy really took it out of you. Now for your last task of the day, Piccolo began, his eyes closed as he sat in a meditation stance. Naruto and Gohan's face took a look of shock. You still expect us to do something, they shouted in unison. Piccolo moved forward anyways. I want you two to kill that dinosaur and bring it here, it will serve as our dinner. The dinosaur Piccolo was talking about was very familiar to Naruto and Gohan. It was the one Naruto always wanted to fight, but Gohan always told him it was too dangerous. It is a task from Gohan, so we have to do it, Naruto said, showing how quickly his demeanor changed. I guess you're right, Naruto. Gohan sighed in defeat. Piccolo flew up from his spot to watch his two students take on the dinosaur. Days later. Now that you've finally managed to get a good grip on controlling Kai, it's time to teach you how to fly. Alright Naruto, we did it. The two gave each other a high five. If we work our hardest we can do anything, Naruto shouted to the world. Both of them were met with the grunts of Piccolo. Don't get so excited, the real training hasn't even begun yet, so far I've only taught you the basics. Gohan took a serious look when he had learned. Naruto and I still have a long way to go. Don't worry Gohan, we'll keep stronger no matter what. Piccolo chuckled as he heard this. You don't possibly think that you're actually strong enough to take on the Saiyans with your power as of right now, do you? Naruto and Gohan remained silent. Now let's continue. Piccolo began before a shout interrupted him. And so what if we think we can beat the Saiyans? Gohan shouted to the shock of Naruto. Right now your powers are nowhere near enough. Next was Naruto's turn to shout. Then we'll get stronger. He looked over to Gohan and both nodded to each other. Then prove it. If you can't learn how to fly in 1 week, I'll give up training you. Piccolo shouted once again, allowing his anger to flood into his words. Naruto's eyes widened at the statement. He'll stop training us. Naruto was at a loss for words. Then we'll do it. Gohan replied. Right Naruto. Naruto stared at his friend. The determination that built up in Gohan was incredible. Right. And with those mighty words the path to Piccolo's true training would begin. Piccolo smirked at the two youths. Perfect. Week later. Now show me that you can fly, both of you, Piccolo announced. The test for displaying if they could properly use Kai and fly would be held in a very wide plains area. Ready Gohan? Naruto said as he stretched his arms. On his face was a look filled to the brim with determination. Yep. Gohan replied, doing his own set of stretches. Gohan was serious too, and he was determined that he would show Piccolo just what he could do. Now start flying slowly. Both youths followed the instructions and began bringing the Kai underneath of them in a slow pace. Too much Kai would cause an imbalance, and flying would be nearly impossible to control, and too little wouldn't even lift them from the ground. That's why it was so hard for normal humans to fly. It took a good amount of control and training to know what amount was just right. The Demi-Saiyans slowly lifted from the ground and into the air. These actions were met with Piccolo smirking. Now fly around fast. Use your Kai to speed you up, Piccolo ordered wisely. Naruto increased the Kai he was using and flew faster. He could feel himself flying through the air at fast speed. He wasn't able to fully enjoy the sensation though, with wind blinding his eyes, but with time he would get used to it. He stopped his flight and flew down beside Piccolo. How'd I do? Piccolo grunted. You passed. The man could show some acknowledgement about the boy's feat. Gohan. Piccolo called out. It's your turn. Gohan looked over to where his friend and mentor sat. A nervous look crossed the face of Gohan. Naruto did it like a pro, but I'm not sure if you can do it. Gohan, you can do it. Naruto shouted with complete support for his friend. If Naruto believes I can do it, then I can. It just goes for show that the bond between Naruto and Gohan was very strong. Gohan allowed the Kai he was storing to move underneath his legs. His speed increased as he pushed more of it out. As the son of Goku sped through the air at magnificent speeds, he laughed. "Naruto, I did it." Piccolo chuckled as well, something Naruto usually wouldn't see. "Congratulations, you finished my first piece of training." Naruto and Gohan gave each other a huge hugs, jumped around with joy. They constantly shouted. "We did it. We did it." The two finally were going to get to the hardcore training. They wanted to get strongest to show that they could help save the world. "Don't start celebrating yet because now our true training tomorrow." The Demi Saiyans nodded. They had paved their ways into this, there was no turning back. By the time of nightfall the three were surrounding a campfire. It was at this time that Gohan asked a question that he long since had forgotten to ask Naruto. "Hey Naruto, can you tell me about the people back on your planet?" Gohan asked. "Start speaking up, you never told me just what happened," Piccolo said. Both eyes of Piccolo and Gohan stared Naruto down. "The people back on my planet were really mean except for a few." Naruto began quietly. "I don't know why, but they always treated me different than other people." A sad voice formed in Naruto as he continued explaining his story further. Gohan gained a sad look on his face, while Piccolo looked on with interest. "They would chase me down and beat me up, and they called me a demon. There were only a couple people who didn't treat me like that, but I really didn't have any friends my age." Naruto stopped in his tracks as he described as best as he could, a sad look plastered on his face. "That's when that Raditz person came and took me, but I escaped into the pod." Naruto looked to Gohan with a sad smile. "So actually Gohan's my first real friend," he said silently and looked to the ground. Naruto's head shot back up when he was engulfed by a huge hug courtesy of Gohan. "Naruto, you're not a monster, you're my best friend," Gohan assured as Naruto looked at him with everlasting happiness. "Gohan's a really good friend," Naruto thought. "You mean it?" "You better believe it," Gohan said, stealing one of his friend's trademark phrases. "An." Had to use the English saying, it just felt right. Just then the campfire which lit the area went out. "That's enough, get some sleep, you both have a long day of training tomorrow," Piccolo called from his now sleeping position. "Yes sir," they replied and went off to bed. There must be some logical reason why they called him that. Could that be the reason why some of his energy was slightly negative? Piccolo turned his head to look at a sleeping Naruto. "Naruto, you have more secrets than probably you even know, and you've been through so much." At those thoughts, Piccolo decided to fall asleep, not time to ponder over it. As the light of dawn cracked through the sky, Naruto and Gohan patiently waited for Piccolo to awaken. "This is getting boring." Naruto sighed with a boring expression. "Take such a long time to wake up." "Maybe he's really tired or he just doesn't want to wake up," Gohan replied. Though he was bored, he could wait a little longer, everyone's patience would break sometime. Piccolo grunted softly as his eyes began to twitch, giving signs of him waking up. "I think he's waking up." With a loud yawn, Piccolo opened his green eyelids to the world. His first sight wasn't exactly what he was expecting though. Both Naruto and Gohan were staring straight into the eyes of their mentor. "Will you two move out the way?" Piccolo managed to ask nicely enough. No reason to be so grumpy in the morning, it was just hard for Piccolo to be nice to others at all. Minutes later, after having a very small breakfast, both Naruto and Gohan prepared to begin their true training. "I wonder what it's going to teach us?" Gohan asked, showing some of his child curiosity. "Maybe some Kai-based attacks or some moves that's gonna increase our power," Naruto responded, giving a display at his child imagination. "You both will be learning none of that yet," Piccolo called out to the two. His voice was met with the listening yet disappointed sighs of Naruto and Gohan. "Both of you will be sparring with me together and then later on simultaneously." Piccolo cracked his head and arms back and forth, signaling he ready to battle. "Come and strike me, I won't attack you." Both Demi Saiyans charged right in, an order from Piccolo was well in order. What the two didn't expect was a Kai blast to the face courtesy of their mentor. "You said you weren't going to attack us," Gohan complained, trying to ignore the stinging from the attack. Naruto coughed up the smoke made from the contact of the blast, which disabled him to speak his words, so silently he agreed with Gohan. "Fools never trust your enemy," Piccolo replied, staring down his two students. But you're not our enemy," Gohan managed to make out. What Piccolo said was true, you shouldn't trust your enemies, but Piccolo just wasn't their enemy. "Like I said, you're our friend," Naruto made out quietly as he started to scratch his head sheepishly. Sighing, Piccolo began to explain their next lesson. Month later. A month had come and gone in the training with Piccolo, and our two Demi Saiyans had finally adjusted to the training style of Piccolo. In Piccolo's training grounds, the sound of fighting could be heard throughout. In the middle of it were Naruto and Gohan fighting against Piccolo. Naruto launched a very brute kick towards Piccolo, only to be parried with an arm. Piccolo's counterattack continued with a spin of Naruto's arm and launching the blonde backwards. The next set of Piccolo's motions seemed to prove that he was timing his attacks. He blocked Gohan, who had tried to sneak a punch from, and sent him flying right into an open Naruto. Both boys had improved in fighting tremendously, but against Piccolo, it seemed that they hadn't made any progress at all. Have you finally had enough? Piccolo's ears perked up when he heard the heavy breathing of Naruto and Gohan, who had yet to given up. We're not done yet, was the best the two could make out between heavy breaths. Back and forth punches and kicks came to Piccolo, and with each one that was put in motion, Piccolo dodged. It wasn't until very long where finally Naruto and Gohan managed to get a hit. That's when their counterattack began. Naruto's fist connected straight into Piccolo's stomach while Gohan gave an uppercut to his chin. Due to this action, Piccolo was sent spiraling up in the air. The Demi-Saiyan certainly didn't stop there as Naruto gave an uppercut straight upon chin to send him flying even more. To finish off a very strong combo, both half-Saiyans flew up and gave Piccolo a hard kick to the head, which sent the man tumbling to the ground. Naruto and Gohan finally let out a breath they had been holding and fell to the ground unconscious. They had to strain their bodies to finish that combo. Piccolo grunted and caught the two before they fell to the ground. They both have improved by an outstanding rate. His next action could have shocked anybody who knew him. Piccolo smiled, but he quickly erased it. This is no time to be growing soft. -4 months later. That's it, that's all, you've completed my training. Piccolo called out to his students. Naruto and Gohan grinned at each other. How about we have a celebration hug? Gohan said quietly. Yay, that would be great. Naruto yelled to his mentor. No. Piccolo shouted. Please. Gohan begged. No. Come on please. Naruto said, trying to make his eyes as cute as possible. Siding with the blonde, Gohan did the same as well. Fine. Piccolo mumbled and allowed both Demi-Saiyans to pull him in a hug. I'll never understand HU8 mans and their silly emotions such as love. As Naruto and Gohan pulled from the hug, the sky grew dark fast. The sun was blocked out by black clouds very familiar to Piccolo. So they finally summoned Shenron. Piccolo's voice rang through the darkness. He was very calm about the situation, though it was only natural to him. So that must mean that they're wishing my dad back. Gohan called out with joy. Who wouldn't? His father is coming back after 1 year of being amongst the dead. Congratulations Gohan, you'll be able to see your dad again. Naruto shouted happily to his friend. King Kai's planet. There you go Goku, the halo on your head is gone. The proclaimed King Kai said as a monkey behind him shot confetti out of a gun. King Kai wasn't what you expected. First of all, he looked very different to humans, and he was also a comedian, a very bad one at that. Gee, thanks for everything King Kai. Goku replied. He now wore a guy very similar to his normal one, just this time he had the symbol of Kai. Goku looked lively and as battle ready as ever. He truly was ready to fight those who tried hurting Earth. Goku, one more thing before you head off. King Kai said, giving off a very serious aura. What is it King Kai? Naruto Uzumaki has sealed inside of him from the planet he was living on previously. That planet was in my jurisdiction. When he was born, a beast made of a giant amount of chakra, the power, the energy on that planet, was sealed inside of him. Right now fighting it wouldn't be a problem, since chakra is naturally weaker than Kai, but the beast may become a massive Kai, since Naruto body's energy preference is it. Goku, take extreme caution when you are with Naruto, okay? If anything happens you must make sure Naruto keeps control. King Kai explained with haste. Time was running out for them. You got King Kai. Goku replied and gave thumbs up. The pure Saiyan stretched as he prepared for his long run back down Snake Way. Naruto and Gohan. Get some rest both of you. Tomorrow we'll see if the training really paid off. Piccolo ordered to his students. Naruto and Gohan silently nodded. Tomorrow our training will put to use, we'll show those Saiyans. Naruto thought with pure determination. We'll show everyone just what we've learned. Gohan, similar to Naruto, was filled with a determination. Only question. Would their bravery stand when they were face to face with their foes? The final day of peace on Earth came and gone in the blink of an eye. No one on Earth except for the Z fighters knew that that face of death loomed heavily amongst the planet. November 3rd, age 762 was the date 2 space pods landed in a city. The only thing our two Demi-Saiyans could make out was the winds which blew from the destruction of the city. No way. Naruto shouted as he covered his eyes from the wind. Is that them? Gohan was also blinding his eyes, was shocked at just how much damage the Saiyans could cause. The city that was destroyed was very far from the training grounds, but the attack was powerful enough to brew up wind that reached other parts of the planet. Get ready, they'll be heading for us. Piccolo warned. Once again he cracked his head and hands as he prepared to fight. Seems like everyone's already here. A familiar voice called out from above. Krillin. Piccolo called to his ally. For the moment. Piccolo, seems you managed to keep both of them alive. Krillin replied as he made his way to the ground. "Hi, I'm Goku friend Krillin." "I'm Gohan." Gohan greeted, shaking off his shock. Naruto managed to get rid of all of his shock as well, albeit most of it. "Naruto Uzumaki ready whenever." He greeted in a very happy tone. Krillin did seem nice. "With the introductions, it seems our guests have arrived." Piccolo spread his arms out as his head looked up. Well, just what do we have here?" Someone from above softly chuckled, this time the voice was far from familiar. The man eyed all of them carefully. The Naruto and Gohan's surprise up above them were the Saiyans they had trained for a year to fight. Just what lies in store for the Z fighters, and will they able to hold off the threat before Goku arrives? Only time will tell as the battle which holds the Earth's fate begins, next time. Snake Way. On the alleged 1,000,000-mile Snake Way, Goku raced down the road at a much faster speed compared to about a year ago. He ran at speeds normal people could only dream of. He was in very deep thought though as he recalled what King Kai had told him. Flashback. "Goku, one more thing before you head off," King Kai said, giving off a very serious aura. "What is it, King Kai?" "Naruto Uzumaki has sealed inside of him from the planet he was living on previously. That planet was in my jurisdiction. When he was born, a beast made of a giant amount of chakra, the energy on that planet, was sealed inside of him. Right now fighting it wouldn't be a problem, since chakra is naturally weaker than Kai, but the beast may become a massive Kai, since Naruto body's energy preference is it. Goku, take extreme caution when you are with Naruto, okay? If anything happens you must make sure Naruto keeps control." King Kai explained with haste. Time was running out for them. "You got King Kai." Goku replied and gave thumbs up. The pure Saiyan stretched as he prepared for his long run back down Snake Way. Flashback end. If Naruto really is from another planet, does he want to go back? Goku wondered, though he doubted it. Probably not, since he's became a really good friend of Gohan. The Saiyan smiled at that thought. But if he doesn't leave, he want a home to stay in. Unknown to Goku, Naruto himself wasn't sure if he could call his home on Konoha home. And I wonder just how strong that being sealed in Naruto is. Needless to say, Goku had many unanswered questions at the moment, but one thing was for sure, he was excited at his upcoming challenges. Earth. Two figures lowered themselves to what used to be Naruto and Gohan's training ground. They obviously were Saiyans, judging by their choice of attire. Similar to Raditz, both wore armor just like his and a device on their eye. The taller one of the two was a bald man with a very smug look on his face. The shorter one with spiky hair which pointed upwards wore calm and collected look even though he was smirking. Looking on were Naruto and Gohan, who stared at the two arrivals with serious demeanors. The purple guy Piccolo had given them blowing in the wind as the atmosphere took an very tense turn. "Looks like the whole gang's here." Another two people came, but unlike the other two, they were part of the Z fighters. Strangely, one of the men had 3 eyes. He bore a green guy which only covered one shoulder. The other one was a very small person, his skin was very pale, and he wore a white shirt and black pant. These were Tien and Chiatsu. "Don't forget about me." With not even a moment of silence, another fighter entered the fray. He wore a guy similar to the regular Kame one, just short-sleeved. A trademark of the man was the scar which marked his cheek. His name was Yamcha. "They just keep coming, don't they, Nappa?" The shorter one of the men said while keeping his smirk. "Which one of them are the one who killed Raditz?" "I think it was the green one, Vegeta." The one known as Nappa replied. "It seems that somehow an Namekian has made his way onto Earth." The one who was now known as Vegeta chuckled before his face became a serious one. "Let's see, there are 8 of them. Nappa, how many Cybermen do we have?" Naruto looked on with somewhat fear. He was inexperienced on the battlefield, and actually this was his first real battle. "We can do this," he repeatedly thought through his head, but now even he wasn't sure if he could do it. How can they take it so calmly? They're acting like it's a game. Gohan thought. Here he was scared out of his mind now that he was face to face, but the two of them were taking it like a joke. Both half Saiyans were stressing out. Krillin looked back at the two Demi Saiyans. "Calm down, everything's going to be alright. If you two were actually trained by Piccolo, then you must be strong." Krillin's words certainly calmed down the two, but the threat still remained. Back over with Vegeta and Nappa, the latter was currently planting what appeared to be seeds into the ground, 7 of them to be precise. "How about we have a little tournament?" Vegeta began. It really was just all a game to him. "A tournament? You think this is all a game?" Tien shouted. Vegeta ignored him in favor of what grew right out of the ground. What actually looked grew instead of plants were 7 green small creatures. "One of you will be each taking turns fight one of them." The words came out of the mouth of once again Vegeta. So now it was a game of elimination. You fight and somebody dies. "Alright, then I'll fight first." The volunteer of this act was Yamcha, who seemed brave enough for the task. "Are you sure, Yamcha? I could go if you want to?" Krillin asked his friend. "It's fine, Krillin, besides I'll just be able to show you the fruits of my training." With a confirmation nod from Krillin, Yamcha walked forward. His laid-back but serious personality sure was a change for the battlefield. You go up and fight him. Don't disappoint me or it'll be the end for you, and that goes for all of you. Between Nappa and Vegeta it now would be very easy to tell who the leader around Vegeta was. Both of you watch carefully and no matter what happens while any of us are fighting don't look away. Ordered a very serious Piccolo. This time every battle would be at the cost of lives. A much hesitated nod came from Naruto and Gohan. Naruto looked onto the battlefield where Yamcha stared off the single Cyberman. In a fast motion both Yamcha and the Cybermen were across the battlefield at tremendous speeds. For the older part of the Z fighters it was easy to move their eyes around and spot where and what was happening, but for Naruto and Gohan, it was impossible to spot it. Wow. They disappeared. Gohan yelled with complete awe. Yay, but what's the point if we can't see them? Naruto said, slightly hinting on his frustration. Don't use your eyes to see them. You have to sense their Kai. Piccolo's instructions were hard to follow if you didn't know what to do to begin with. It was a good thing that he taught the Demi Saiyans the art of Kai. The two had been taught how to sense energy levels, and proof of this could be shown as they moved their eyes to follow Yamcha and the Cyberman's speed. The two fighters finally landed on the ground staring each other down. It was then that Yamcha began charging a ball of Kai into his hands. The hand burst from the hands of the Z fighter and made its way to make contact with its target. Smoke erupted from the collision as Yamcha smirked. Man, was that too easy. Words that emitted from the mouth of Yamcha as he turned himself around to make his way back to the group. Behind him the smoke vanished to show the Cyberman jump and pull Yamcha into a sturdy hold. Piccolo grunted as he watched his ally pay the price for underestimating his opponent. The Cyberman, viciously holding on to the creator of the Wolfang Fist, started emitting a light which grew brighter by the second. This scene was all too familiar to the older part of the Z fighters. The Cyberman had taken to the art of self-destruction a last resort move. But with a mighty sound smoke once again made itself apparent on the battlefield. Krillin rushed in to look at his friend and training partner. Naruto and Gohan were in shock at the outcome. Death was a scary thing up close and to them they were staring at it. Over to the sides where the Saiyans stood, Vegeta and Nappa were both chuckling and laughing respectively. Krillin grit his teeth as he looked over the body of Yamcha, the dead body of Yamcha. You heartless monsters. The Earthlings shouted as he slowly carried the lifeless body of his friends away. Everyone leave them to me. Krillin yelled, referring to the Cybermen. It was only moments later that a scattered Kai wave destroyed every other Cyberman left in the area. Nappa stretched his arms as he prepared to begin his portion of the fight. So it's my turn to fight, right, Vegeta? The affirmation came in the form of a minor grunt from his boss. Krillin wasn't taking any chances in this fight and neither was anyone else in the matter. In one swift movement, Krillin made his way up to the large Saiyan. He pushed a fist straight to Nappa's face and in turn the Saiyan smirked and grabbed the Earthling's hand. Krillin's eyes widened as he looked at the position he was in. There he stood wide open to any attack which would come his way. No way. Naruto whispered so that only Gohan could hear. Gohan gulped in agreement with his friend. He brushed that attack off like it was nothing. With watching eyes Naruto and Gohan looked to see Piccolo, Tien, Krillin and even little Chiatsu moving in to fight. This isn't even a warm-up. Nappa's cocky laugh brewed through the air. He was having fun despite being outnumbered though he seemed to be winning the struggle. Odin Ray. Tien shouted, releasing a thin beam of yellow Kai at his adversary. The attack was easily deflected by the Saiyan brute. Nappa was practically toying with him at this rate and it seemed he wasn't letting up. Piccolo moved behind the brute in one swift motion and grabbed his tail and smirked. Now that I've gotten your tail you're weak. Piccolo said from behind Nappa, his grasp still very firm. But in the end it was Vegeta and Nappa smirking and looking at the latter. He didn't seem weak at all. Nappa roughly dragged his arm backwards, hitting Piccolo and tossing the man aside. He damned it, Piccolo quietly cursed. They weren't making any progress at all. He cocked his head towards his students. They haven't moved an inch, cowards. Both Demi Saiyan were frozen in their spots. They were inexperienced when it came to actually fighting on the battlefield. They were Saiyans, but they were also still kids. I'm getting bored now. Nappa's eyes began to scan the Z fighters. Which one of you wants to die first? His eyes scanned around till they landed on the three-eyed fighter Tien. Tien braced himself in his fighting stance. He looked on to see a charging Nappa meters from colliding with him. Around the brute was an aura of hot yellow Kai. When the two collided they stretched out their arm and parried each other's attack. Though that Tien's hand was burned from the force of the impact plus the Kai enforced in the hit. Tien screamed in agony as he grasped his burning hand, all the while everyone else looked on in horror. Watch out. Piccolo shouted, warning the warrior to no avail. Nappa's attack wasn't over yet either as the Saiyan jumped up and fell onto the warrior in a rigid manner. Gohan's eyes shut close as he already knew what had happened from another shout of Tien's pain. The three-eyed warrior's hand had been detached and sadly, unlike Piccolo's, it could not regenerate. Naruto looked on with complete horror in comparison to his friend. We just have to wait till Gohan's dad gets back and everything will be alright, Naruto thought in hope, but even though he wasn't sure if they could hold on. Tien struggled to relieve himself from his place on the ground. His stance was wobbly and he was slightly shaking, but his passion to keep on fight kept moving him on. Nappa once again pummels him into the ground. Naruto shut his eyes tight, he couldn't bear to watch the events unfolding anymore, even with Piccolo's words flowing into his mind. Gohan on the other hand had already closed his eyes prior to Tien's hand being detached. Gohan was in deep thought at this point too. From the stories he heard from Kai Goku was always there to save the day, but now daddy, where are you? A brief thought crossed his mind, one that he couldn't help but deny, but still doubt himself. What if he realized there was no hope and he isn't coming? As Gohan wondered about this, a shout cut off his train of thoughts. Taiyatsu. Both Gohan and Naruto eyes moved from shut to open. Their eyes darted into the sky as they looked on in shock. Taiyatsu was holding on to the Saiyan brute's back in the sky, and oddly enough he was glowing. From the sky Nappa was grabbing to his back, trying to take the warrior off. The results proved that the actions were useless though. Goodbye, Tien, Taiyatsu somewhat weakly called. The body of the small warrior was now completely enveloped in white light. Smoke erupted from the area surrounding Nappa. Goku, where are you? Krillin whispered, causing Vegeta raised his eyebrows before hiding his interests. Piccolo's turn looks focused on the cloud of smoke. He knew exactly as well as Krillin just what had just happened. The Demi-Saiyans were in a mixed amount of feeling now, worried, sadness, and possibly even scared were some that could be named. Naruto couldn't bear to look at Tien's distraught face, it would just make him feel all the more guilty at not being able to do anything about what just happened. Slowly Tien stood up and directed his only hand into a half-triangle form. This technique was very similar to the Z fighters who had previously viewed other world martial arts tournaments, and by the looks on their face, they didn't like what technique Tien was about to perform one bit. Tien, don't do it. Krillin screamed, but his plea fell on deaf ears. The three-eyed warrior had already put in enough energy to power his attack. The technique he was about to use was the Tri-Beam, and it was a very dangerous attack. Nappa, still in the sky, looked below to see what the bald midget had been shouting about, and he did not expect to be blasted in the face by a Triangle Kai attack. Neo Tri-Beam. On the ground, Tien was shown getting weaker by the second as he repeatedly threw blast on after another. That's when Tien's face looked so weak that it had seemed that he was inflicting damage upon himself. One final blast hit Nappa before Tien fell to the ground and seemed to no longer be breathing, and to the horror of Naruto and Gohan, another Z fighter has become a casualty. And up in the sky landing towards the ground was Nappa, still in top shape. Sorry for just rushing through those parts there, but basically to that point I was improvising on what to do. That's when it struck him. If we just keep standing here and don't even help, Piccolo's training will be in vain. Naruto's face grew serious. The blonde slowly walked up to Nappa, who stared at him. So the brats finally manned up. When Naruto was standing right in front of him, he sniffed. Naruto quickly pinched his nose and looked at the brute. You smell. He shouted, quickly waiting for the Saiyan's reaction, which came fairly quick. You try spending a year in a space pod and not being able to take a bath. Nappa rant was shortly cut off from Naruto. Next action. The Demi-Saiyan kicked him in an area right between his legs. Krillin, Gohan, and Piccolo sweat dropped. I have to admit the brat has some spunk. Vegeta chuckled. Ha! Naruto shouted and launched a yellow Kai blast into Nappa's face. Here's my chance. Piccolo thought as he dashed straight towards a dazed Nappa. The Namekian brought a low kick to him, sweeping the Saiyan off his feet, and proceeded with another kick which made Nappa speed into the air. Krillin followed Piccolo's lead and sped into the sky to meet up with Nappa and grabbed his own hand together. Then in one fell swoop, he sent the Saiyan plummeting towards the ground with a swing from his hands. Looking at the current situation, one could tell that the fight seemed to be to the Z fighters' advantage, but Naruto watched in panic as Nappa fell towards Gohan, who looked on still frozen in his spot. What am I going to do? Gohan thought, also in panic. My body won't move. Gohan, what are you waiting for? Attack him. His mentor shouted to him, but still he wouldn't move. Gohan, you have to believe in yourself. Naruto shouted, trying to motivate his friend. This is what we've been training for. Just imagine yourself being able to beat him and you can do it. Gohan gripped his hand, thinking over what Naruto told him. Naruto's right, I can't stand here and do nothing. Gohan would never forgive himself if it was his fault that the earth was destroyed. Gohan's hands moved up to his forehead, mimicking a position Piccolo had taught him, and Gohan. He charged up Kai quickly into his hand. The Senko Ha. He called out his attack and stretched his arm outwards. The attack made contact with Nappa and gave birth to a layer of smoke upon contact. Naruto ran up to his friend with a grin plastered on his face. Krillin and Piccolo also slowly made their way to Gohan. Alright Gohan. Naruto said as he gave Gohan a high five, which was returned. Krillin smiled at the two with some hope. You two did great. Thanks. Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. You don't have to be formal, just call me Krillin. Piccolo looked at the Demi-Saiyans with no emotion whatsoever. They've gotten really strong. If they can keep it up, then Piccolo smirked. The battle sure was about to take a huge turn. Vegeta was having his own thoughts. He was looking over his scouter to make sure he was getting everything correctly. Those two's power levels were reaching up to 3000. If they were to fully charge up like the others, they could reach heights which could beat Nappa. It was a theory, a wild one at that fact, but this were Saiyans that he was talking about, the strongest race in the universe, so maybe, just maybe, it was possible. High in the sky was Nappa, who had suspended, who everyone had long forgotten. He was obviously enraged at not only being forgotten, but also getting a beating from the Z fighters. If you think I'm going to let you get away, then you must be dreaming. Nappa landed on the ground, pure anger written on his face. It was only his nature. Hold it, Nappa. Vegeta called, forcing a very reluctant Nappa to slow in his tracks. This Goku you have been talking about, is he Kakarot? His question was directed towards the others. Krillin looked at Vegeta with a frown. I guess, but that isn't his name, it's Goku. Goku. Gohan and Naruto sweat dropped at Krillin's unneeded words. Vegeta closed his eyes and thought. Alright, then you get 3 hours. The battle will pause for 3 hours. If Kakarot is not here in that amounting of time, we'll continue the battle. But Vegeta. Nappa began, almost seeming to complain at his partner's announcement. Shut up, Nappa. Naruto burst out laughing at how fast Nappa was turned down. You shut up, just wait till I get my hands on you. Nappa shouted. You won't even lay a hand on us after we're done with you. Gohan yelled with a grin. His action was met with a grin right back from Naruto. The two's courage was back and they seemed to now be ready to contribute to the fight. To the sidelines, Piccolo and Krillin looked at the two Demi-Saiyans. Man, Piccolo, they're really strong. How crazy did you train them? Piccolo shrugged. Their power has grown to amazing boundaries, but they still haven't even tapped into their true power. Not by a long shot. Wait, so you mean they're even stronger? Piccolo nodded as he spoke. Even the one over there, Vegeta, he's already noticed too. Gohan, you okay? You seemed worried. Naruto was really good at telling emotions, and Gohan could tell. The son of Goku was doing the best he could to hide it. Gohan hesitated with his words. Don't worry, Gohan, if you're worried about your dad, he'll come. How do you know? A shocked Gohan spoke. The wild guesses. Naruto responded while sheepishly scratching his head. And with that, the two headed over to Piccolo and Krillin. Snake Way. Come on. Still on Snake Way was Goku, who was pumping all the energy he could in order to reach the end. Gohan, Piccolo, Krillin, Naruto, don't worry, I'll be there soon. Kai-Kai's house. Gathered around a TV in the living room of the Sun House were Kai-Kai, her father the Ox King, Bulma, Oolong, Pure, and Master Roshi. Gohan's really strong. Proclaimed the voice of a childhood friend of Goku, Bulma. And that Naruto doesn't seem like he's doing that bad himself. Master Roshi said. Those screams of surprise came from Kai-Kai. Krillin was right, Gohan is friends with Naruto. Didn't you see how he was talking to him? He sure gave Gohan a lot of courage, Oolong concluded. But don't you remember what Krillin said? That kid isn't from this planet. Pure said. So after this he would go back to his other planet, right? I highly doubt that at this point. Master Roshi said in what could be seen as a wise voice. That looked when he attacked that big Saiyan, I could tell he did it for the Earth. What do you mean? Oolong questioned. It kind of seemed like a whole bunch of nonsense. I mean, why else would you protect a planet? If you had family or friends on that planet, or you truly cared about it, at that point that planet would become your home. Battlefield. Vegeta's scouter beeped for the second time, alerting him and an impatient Nappa that only 1 hour remained. 1 hour remains. I guess the Kakarot fellow decided to chicken out after all. What a shame. Nappa cockily chuckled to the anger of Gohan. Gohan gripped his hand in anger and gritted his teeth, which obviously didn't go unnoticed by Naruto. But shortly calmed down after a while. It just wasn't worth risking breaking any time his dad had left to come. Only 1 hour left, what's the plan? Krillin spoke, breaking the large silence. Naruto and Gohan were dead silent and Piccolo was running out of ideas. Any ideas? We'll have to hold our ground for as long as we can until Goku arrives. Piccolo's plan did seem very short-minded from a few dozen angles, but what other chance did they have? We'll only be able to do it if you two fight, so will you? Piccolo's answers came in the form of fierce nods from Naruto and Gohan. They weren't scared anymore this time. They would fight and they would stand their ground. Neither of them was going to stand around and get killed. They had power and they would use it to protect not only them but everyone else. Vegeta's scouter rang on final time. Time's up, we shall continue he battle. Nappa gave a smile and cracked his head while directing his attention to the Z fighters. Now I'll deal with all of you. If Nappa doesn't cool it, then he'll end up losing, Vegeta thought once again. But if he continues I'll be able to see their full potential. A small smirk crossed Vegeta's face as he prepared to watch the fireworks continue. It's a shame that Kakarot hasn't arrived yet. We can do this Gohan. Naruto said to his friend. Yeah, we just have to hold on long enough till my dad gets here. Gohan replied. Now he still wasn't exactly sure when Goku would get here, but he was sure that he was trying to make it as fast as he could. The 4 remaining defenders of Earth stood their ground against the shouts of Nappa. What was left of the Demi-Saiyan's fear was also gone. Nappa's eyes scanned across the fighters. His anger showed he was ready to kill at any moment, but he would make sure they would suffer. Nappa proceeded in taking off his battered armor and stretching. The brute began running only to be knocked back from a kick from Krillin and kicked on the neck by the same person. Piccolo let his fist make direct contact with Nappa, who in turn began a parry of punches and kicks towards the said Namekian. Though Piccolo managed to avoid each and every attack and land a few of his own. The distance between Nappa and Piccolo decreased even more with the actions of the 2 Demi-Saiyans. Both Naruto and Gohan landed a straight foot plant onto Nappa's face, causing him to stumble back. Naruto and Gohan gave each other a huge high five at the succeeded attack. The two gave each other a grin before turning their heads back to Nappa, who looked very pissed off. I'll kill all of you right now. Nappa shouted, letting loose a range of mad emotions take stage. First Nappa picked up Krillin and crashed him into a mountain. Next Nappa grabbed Piccolo and slammed him into the ground with plenty of force to make dent in the ground. Nappa then moved to Gohan, who was very quickly punched in the gut and kneeling towards the ground. And you. Naruto was forcefully grabbed by Nappa and struggled over the grasp of the brute. Then the man began kneeing Naruto continuously. The blonde spat out some blonde from the repeat gut kneeing. It hurt like hell. Then Naruto. Gohan weakly lifted his friend to see his friend taking a brutal amount of damage. Gohan gripped his fist hard. Naruto is always there to help me out, but when he's in trouble I can never help him. But what can I do? Gohan was at a loss for thoughts, and Piccolo and Krillin seemed to be out of commission. Gohan slowly stood up and shook, still feeling the effects of the attack from Nappa. I'm not done yet, Gohan quietly said. He had still not got Nappa's attention. The Demi-Saiyan wiped the blood and spoke once more. I'm not done yet. Gohan's flew towards Nappa at very fast speeds and tackled the brute down. Naruto fell to the ground and spat out a little bit more blood before standing up while slightly shaking. Thanks Gohan. He said. Gohan smiled back at his friend before looking down at his hands. Did I really just do that? He was surprised that he had it in him, but over to the side of Vegeta, a certain Saiyan prince just had his theory proven. Both Naruto and Gohan moved backwards as they saw Nappa stand up again. Every time he was knocked down he came back up even more pissed than the last time, and this time he looked like he was going to explode. You little runts, both of you are going to die. Nappa seethed with rage. Nappa, calm down. Vegeta shouted, causing Nappa to cease his movements. If you keep this up they'll be able to get the advantage of you. Vegeta spoke very true words of experience. You're right Vegeta, thanks. Nappa was level-headed for the first time since the fight had began, but Naruto and Gohan's situation still remained. It was only them against Nappa. 2 against one seemed more advantageous towards their side, but there was a few factors which made them way into the disadvantage zone. I guess it's only us Gohan. Yay. There was a little bit of silence between the two before they both took stances similar to Piccolo for obvious reasons. They both now had serious faces before they charged at the Saiyan brute. Krillin surely wasn't out of action behind them, actually the bald man was charging up a huge concentration of Kai above his stretched arm. Damn, Naruto and Gohan are in the way. I can't launch this with them in the way. I'll take care of it Krillin. Krillin almost jumped back in shock from the words of Piccolo. It seemed he had no clue that Piccolo was back in action too. Piccolo, give someone a warning next time, you almost cost me my attack. Piccolo grunted as he turned his body to face his students. He gave them a look of pride. Both of them were fighting on their own to hold their adversary off, for now they were no longer cowards in battle, and they actually would be fighters. He erased a look from his face and moved forward to meet up with them. The heavy breath of the Demi-Saiyans and their attacks coming in slower and slower showed that each of them were getting extremely tired. The damage from the battle was really starting to take effect. We can't stop going, if we stop then all our effort would be wasted, including mine. Naruto was directly talking about himself. When he was a kid he always had a dream to have a lot of friends, nice ones to be specific, but at Konoha, that seemed to never be able to be a reality. But here on Earth the people were really nice and they treated him like family, so maybe, just maybe, his dream could come true. We have to keep going, we just have to hold on a little longer till Dad gets here. Naruto isn't giving up with her. There's no way I can, or else we'll both end up dying. No, that won't happen, I won't let it. Gohan was a little scared, but for the meanwhile he would have to set that aside and fight as hard as he could. Both Naruto and Gohan aimed a kick to Nappa's side, but both legs were caught, leaving themselves wide open. Nappa let a small smirk make way to his face as he noticed his current opportunities. He slammed both of them into the ground only to be kicked back by Piccolo. The Namekian quickly scooped up Naruto and Gohan and led them away from the dazed Saiyan. Krillin now. Alright then, this is the fruit of my training, now take a look at my new technique. Destructo Disc. Krillin gave his arm a thrust forward to launch the newly named Kai Disc. Nappa, who was still dazed, was straight in line with collision course of the attack, which was much stronger than anyone would originally think. Nappa, you idiot, dodge it. Vegeta yelled to his comrade, who snapped out of his on instant just in time to slightly dodge the attack. Though the Saiyan brute had a cut across his solder, which of course once again made him. You're going to wish you never did that. Once again, to none of the Z fighters' surprises, Nappa was once again mad to the irritation of Vegeta. Nappa slowly walked up towards Krillin's position, and the bald Z fighter, not one to lose his chances, darted straight towards the brute. It was because of this action that he was roughly picked up and kneed in the chin. Ah! Krillin's scream of agony broke into the air, he felt like his jaw had just broken into a million pieces. And Nappa didn't stop there. Next he hurled him into the air and kicked him in the gut. Ah! Once again the screams of agony broke into the air, it was getting too familiar to Naruto at this point, the continuous screams of pain. Naruto took a step forward to help out his friend. He wouldn't stand around anymore. Stop hurting my friend. Nappa stopped hurling Krillin around to look at Naruto, and he smirked cockily. Finally regrown your guts. Naruto ignored that and continued. Give us our friend back. Naruto said with slight anger, he gritted his teeth. Nappa was starting to get on his nerves at this point. Nappa threw over Krillin straight to Naruto like a ragdoll. Naruto brought over Krillin to Piccolo and Gohan and set him down. What are we going to do? Naruto asked quietly, now even he wasn't sure what to do. Piccolo remained silent, he had run out of ideas now. I don't know why, but I know my dad is almost here, so Gohan quietly said. We have to keep fighting. Naruto finished. He brought his face from the ground to give Nappa a serious look. We're going to need your help too. Piccolo just nodded while looking away. To him it was kind of embarrassing to be ordered by one of your students. Sorry guys, I would help you, but Krillin weakly said in a strained voice. Naruto looked back at the bald man and smiled. Don't worry, we'll take care of this from here. He looked back to Gohan, and both nodded. My dad's coming, I know he's almost here, we just have to hold on a little longer, Gohan thought. Piccolo made a rush at Nappa and moved in for an elbow, only to be parried by the brute. Both made advances back and forth with punches and kick, but each was parried, dodged, or pushed away. The brute pushed Piccolo aside to counteract a kick aimed at him from Gohan. Looking to his side, he saw Naruto nowhere in sight till it hit him the face literally. Naruto landed a sky kick on Nappa's face and flipped away along with Gohan to avoid two swings of the brute arms. Piccolo then came back into the assault and knocked Nappa away with a side slam. Next, the Namekian used his arm stretching ability to grab Nappa and fling him into the sky. Gohan was right behind him as he kicked Nappa even higher into the sky with an upwards kick. Naruto was at the height Nappa reached and with a downwards kick sent Nappa racing down to the ground. Nappa, that idiot, he's letting them get the best of him. Vegeta was in complete irritation, and it only increased when Nappa fell to the ground right next to him. Back to the Z fighters, who now were on the ground, each felt something zip in their heads. What the? Piccolo exclaimed. You feel that power coming from over there? Gohan and Naruto nodded, which the starter who started smiling. It's my daddy, I know it. Naruto nodded in agreement, he didn't know why, but he could just feel the bright aura coming from Goku. Vegeta raised his eyebrow at their statements and chuckled. You don't think I would actually believe that you can sense power levels without a scouter? Naruto and Gohan looked at each other and nodded back to Vegeta. They're serious. Vegeta checked the scouter to see. Nappa called. Sure enough, Vegeta did, and with a few beeps of his scouter his face became shocked. No way. But Vegeta. They can actually sense it. Vegeta said, baffled at this discovery. No time, Nappa, kill all of them. The first thing I want Kakarot to see when he gets here are his children and friends' bones and blood. Nappa was already on the attack as he brutally kicked Piccolo away from his position. Next were Gohan and Naruto, who were moved away from their original positions as well. Hurry, finish them now, Nappa. Nappa was quick to follow Vegeta's words and charged up a large amount of Kai into his mouth. He was targeting Naruto and Gohan. This was unknown to the Demi-Saiyans though, who stood their ground. That's when Nappa fired. Time slowed down as the Kai mouth energy wave made its way towards Naruto and Gohan. Naruto and Gohan looked on with faces that could be described as fear, and suddenly their bodies wouldn't move. This can't be the end, not when we were so close, Naruto thought. Not when we did so much, not after everyone's sacrifices, it can't end here. It was nice knowing you, Gohan. Naruto spoke out in almost disbelief. Gohan didn't reply, and both closed their eyes tight. The blinding light of the energy wave still seeped into their eyes, but no matter what they kept their eyes shut. Then like it had never started, the light vanished. Naruto opened his eyes and moved to a face of shock, complete and utter shock. Gohan's eyes were open too, and not only was he shocked, he couldn't believe at what was currently happening. Naruto and Gohan quietly said to the man standing in front of them, the man who had shielded them from the blast. Piccolo fell to the ground, smoke leaving his body. The Namekian was bruised and battered now. Naruto could feel some tears slipping down his face now. Gohan could feel the ultimate sadness now creeping upon him too. "Naruto," Gohan, Piccolo croaked. "I can't believe I just saved the son of my arch-rival and a person I hadn't even known existed till a year ago." Piccolo spoke to Gohan and Naruto respectively. The two were silent on words to say. "You two were the only ones who had never treated me like a monster, but as a friend." The purple blood of the Namekian slipped down his jaw. But why, Gohan managed to make out quietly, the tears just kept falling down the two Demi-Saiyans' face now. "It's because you two were my students, maybe even my first pair of friends." Piccolo smiled. Death was almost running to him at this point. "Don't die." These were the last words which Piccolo said before he finally breathed his last on earth. Naruto's face of sadness changed into a one of anger, still strained with tears. "I'll give you the power to avenge him." Something deep within Naruto called, almost begging Naruto to awaken his hidden abilities. "No," Naruto said out loud. "You can't hold me back forever." The voice faded away with those last words. "You killed." Naruto pointed the anger straight to Nappa. Gohan walked forward silently, his hair blocking off his anger. Gohan shouted to the surprise of Krillin. He never would expect Gohan to get so mad. Gohan's hair ceased to cover his eyes when the boy moved his head up. Gohan's eyes pierced straight into Nappa with pure rage. Once again Vegeta's scouter beeped several times before whirling down to silence. "Ah. Nappa, you better be careful, those brats' power level is 5,000 each." Nappa's face became panicked. 5,000? Impossible, there's no way that two little half-breeds could achieve that power. Naruto and Gohan continued to look at Nappa, their rage coming to its peak. Slowly they walked towards Nappa, both their eyes being shaded by the hair which had slightly overgrown over the 1 year of training. Naruto gripped his right fist as they were only meters away from Nappa and punched the brute across the face. If that was surprising, then Gohan's action would be jaw-dropping. The son of Goku elbowed the brute in the jaw hard enough to cause him to stumble back. Next in the two's combo came from Naruto, and with a jolty stomp across Nappa's face he blew said person into a mountain. Gohan looked on at what happened still-eyed with rage until he thought about something, the brutality of Nappa in fact. Memories from how every other warrior had died on the battlefield because of that. "Naruto, we have to stop." Gohan called to his friend. No longer were his eyes potent with rage, now it was filled with seriousness. "If we keep going like this, we'll be nothing more than him," Gohan said with slight sadness. The Demi-Saiyan eyes looked towards the ground. "Gohan, get ready to help me with something," Naruto called, showing his rage had subsided. Gohan nodded and followed his friend. Naruto now had Nappa's complete attention, judging from how the brute was staring at him. "Why do we fight even though some of us knew we might die?" Naruto began, leaving Gohan and Krillin a little confused. "It's because of Earth," Naruto shouted. Now everyone including Vegeta was confused. They had no idea where this speech was coming from. "Unlike you, they were born here on Earth and they truly care about it, it's their home. But here I am not even being able to call this my birth planet. Having a home doesn't mean you were born there though, it's if you have friends and family there. And that's exactly what I have. So I won't let you." Naruto put his hands on his forehead and began concentrating a huge amount of Kai into it. "Heard my home?" Naruto pushed his hand straight out to release a huge yellow Kai energy wave that made way to Nappa. Gohan smiled at Naruto for those words. Suddenly now Gohan was really happy. Naruto said his home's Earth, so does that mean he's staying here? Gohan thought, hoping his answer was correct. Back to Nappa, the brute was put into a panic state and out of instinct, he released a mouthed energy wave to counteract Naruto's. Vegeta's scouter beeped from the reading he was getting on Naruto's current power. His power level has stabilized at 5,750, that's still not enough to take out Nappa, but if the other one joins in then Nappa has led himself to his own defeat by underestimating them. Vegeta thought with interest they were starting to exceed his predictions as well. In the beam struggle, Nappa seemed to be taking advantage of the situation due to his slightly higher power than Naruto. "Gohan, you have to help me," Naruto called to his friend, bringing Gohan out of his thought. "Right." Gohan charged an amount of Kai very similar to Naruto's and fired, allowing their attacks to combine and continue in the beam struggle with Nappa. Now they had the huge overwhelming advantage against the brute, and within second their energy wave pushed past Nappa's and engulfed him. "Ooh!" screamed Nappa before the yell faded away like darkness as the sun rises. The bright light emitted from the collision of the attack blinding Naruto and Gohan's eyes. When the light had dispersed, the only remains were smoke and rumble. Nappa was gone. Naruto and Gohan looked at each other, not knowing what to do next, until their heads snapped to behind them. "No way!" Krillin exclaimed, also looking behind him. Right behind the remaining Z fighters was a man dressed in a rather familiar orange guy outfit, not only that, but his hair was spiking towards the sides and one strand sticking out near the top. "Sorry I was late everyone." The man apologized. Krillin, Naruto and Gohan felt like crying out of joy now. Goku. As the battle with Nappa closes with Naruto and Gohan releasing a gigantic energy wave to finish him, a new battle arrives just around the corner. And this time their opponent is the cool, collected Saiyan Prince Vegeta. Just what power lies within him, and will the Demi Saiyan's newfound power aid in this battle? Find out next what lies within. Gohan ran up to his father and tackled him into a big hug. Their waiting was over, they could finally fight with their strongest warrior. Goku smiled as he ruffled Gohan's hair. Krillin ran up to Goku's side and panted. "You're finally here." Krillin's smile was evident. Goku gave a giant grin to his best friend before turning his head to a blonde who stood far away from the rest of them. Naruto Uzumaki felt really awkward right about now. I mean, he didn't even know what to do, and unlike Gohan and Krillin, he didn't really know Goku. "Hey Naruto, don't you want to say hi to me?" Goku called to the blonde and signaled him to come over. When Naruto did get to Goku, he bended and greeted, causing Goku to burst out laughing. "There's no reason to greet me like that." Goku calmed down and put his hand down on Naruto's head and ruffled it. "You're a good kid, don't stress yourself." Naruto hesitantly nodded at Goku's words and now looked at the seriousness in the warrior's face. "So Yamcha, Chiatsu, Tien, and Piccolo, they all died, huh?" The three nodded, causing Goku to grit his teeth. "Darn it, I was too late. Wait, wasn't there another Saiyan?" Goku's attention changed to Vegeta, who smirked. Vegeta moved up, closing his distance from Goku before stopping only a few yards away. "Why don't you ask the runts, Kakarot?" Ignoring Vegeta call him by his Saiyan name, Goku looked at Naruto and Gohan. "We sort of killed him." Naruto spoke out awkwardly. Gohan nodded, looking at his dad. He knew that Goku was about to have a really disappointed face at those words, but what actually happened was pretty surprising for everyone. "Haha, no way. I knew you two had gotten strong, but I never thought you two alone would be able to take one of them out. Nice job." Goku put out both of his hands and allowed the Demi Saiyan to give him a high five. "But aren't you mad that we killed him?" Gohan asked his father. "It's okay, I know you both did it for the sake of Earth, and by the way Naruto, I think it's great that you're making Earth your new home." "Huh?" Naruto blankly spoke. He had no idea how Goku had any idea that he had said that. One thing was for sure was that Goku was full of surprises. "So from what I heard, your name is Vegeta." Goku stood up from his position and approached the smaller Saiyan. "The one and only." Vegeta was still smirking with pleasure. "Naruto, Krillin, Gohan, I want all of you to head back to Master Roshi's house. I'll settle this alone." Goku told the other with authority, this time he was for real. "But Dad, we can help you." Gohan pleaded. "Gohan's right, we're stronger now, we can help." Naruto supported. "No buts, now go." "Goku's right guys, we should leave, we'll only get in the way, he won't be able to protect us and fight to the fullest at the same time." Krillin said, trying to wave away Gohan's and Naruto's thoughts. Naruto and Gohan looked at each other with a slight glint in their eyes before nodding their heads. They then picked themselves up from the ground via flying and headed to the Kame house. Krillin followed slowly and looked back to see Goku and Vegeta conversing slightly before they flew off to another spot. "Alright then, we better go follow them." Krillin spoke, breaking the silence. They looked at him with faces of shock, and Krillin knew exactly what they were currently thinking. "Come on, I know you two wouldn't just give up that easy, I've been a youngster too before." Krillin said, raising his pointer finger. Naruto smiled and approached Krillin. "You're the best, Krillin." Gohan approached Krillin as well with a smile. "Thanks for all the help, Krillin." Krillin smirked once again, following the two Demi Saiyans to where Goku and Vegeta's fight would begin. I know. Kame house. That was incredible." Rashi screamed. "I never thought those two could pull it off." Bulma was in complete shock too. She was wearing the scouter that had been used by Raditz, so she could read their power levels. 5,000, she said in a dazed voice. "Gohan's so strong now." Kai spoke with pride. She didn't want him to fight, but she would acknowledge his growth in strength, well, at least not in front of him. Who would have known the old coot was right about Naruto, he really does want to make Earth his home. Oolong spoke almost unbelievably. Now you may be wondering how they were watching the rest of the events taking place. It was pretty easy in ways with the help of an old woman and a crystal ball. Fortunately, Baba levitated around her crystal orb and continued to watching the events. Quiet everyone, it seems those two kids are following Goku and the Saiyan." Gohan. The black-haired Demi Saiyan sneezed as his flight wavered slightly. "I think I'm catching a cold." "Don't worry Gohan, someone's just talking about you," Naruto said with a smile. "He probably Kai." Krillin chuckled before he stopped abruptly. "They're probably watching us right now, so Kai's going to kill me," he thought. "You okay, Krillin?" Gohan asked. "Yeah, everything's okay." Krillin said a little hastily. The Demi-Saiyans raised an eyebrow but shrugged it off. Krillin sure was weird sometimes. Within minutes the trio could see that faint familiar outlines of Goku and Vegeta. It seemed that the fight had already begun, so the three lowered themselves to the ground and rested behind a boulder. "Man, I'm exhausted," Naruto groaned. After hours of fighting, this was the first time he even had the chance to sit down. Gohan and Krillin were too busy focusing on Goku's fight to notice Naruto. It was at this point that they could tell that Goku worked his hardest in the afterlife. He was fighting like never before and busting out every technique he could. "Hey, it looks my dad is winning." Gohan spoke with complete joy. Naruto turned his head to look at the battle, and it did look like Goku was winning at first. Naruto's viewpoint caused him to tilt his head slightly into a wondering position, making him look somewhat childish. "Something's not right, what do you mean?" "Goku's kicking that guy's butt." "Ha ha, get him, Goku." Krillin's battle optimism seemed very apparent and strong to Naruto. Naruto opened and closed his eyes and looked back at the fight a second time. There's just something wrong, he thought again and again, but no matter how many times he looked he just couldn't tell what it was. Goku took a deep breath on the pillar of rocks he stood on, unaware that his battle was being viewed. Goku slightly smirked. "Man, this guy's tough. No matter how many times I knock him down he gets back up, but even when things look this bad, I'm really excited." Naruto looked at Goku and subconsciously could tell that he was smirking a nod, as if he loved the battle, every minute of it. Naruto was awe-inspired by Goku already. At this point there was just no words to describe him. He was finally getting a clear view at why everyone was so dependent on Goku. "Heikin." Goku yelled the name of a new learned technique. "Man, our training is nothing compared to Goku's." Vegeta's scouter beeped again, indicating the change of his opponent's power level. He smirked, witnessing the increase. "Looks like he has a few tricks up his sleeve too." The atmosphere surrounding the fighters intensified as both stared each other down, allowing silence to enter the area. "Now then, shall we end our warm-up then?" Vegeta said, still keeping his cocky voice and smile. "Alright then, no holding back." Goku replied and gave a fierce fighting smile. Naruto was watching with very attentive eyes. "I don't know why, but I'm really excited for this." The answer to this probably would only be known by those with a knowledge of Saiyans. Naruto's Saiyan blood was finally starting to slightly show, the excitement for battle was coursing through his veins. Afterlife. In the afterlife, King Yama gave a huge sigh as he finished signing in the final casualties of Nappa's city explosion. It wasn't easy signing in so many people at once, much less doing it for what feels like an eternity. It was then that the giant ogre's attention was brought to the entrance where four men stood. "You guys are Piccolo, Tien, Chiaotzu, and Yamcha, right?" Each of the now known people gave different replies. They wore what they had during the battle with the Saiyans, but also had a new feature: their halos. Yep, they were dead, and this time there was no way to revive them, not with Piccolo dead. "So I guess you guys want to go meet King Kai." "Huh?" They all very bluntly replied. "You don't know who he is? Didn't Kami tell you that he trained Goku just a while ago?" "Wait, you mean the training for battling the Saiyans?" Yamcha exclaimed with complete shock. "Now that I think about it, shouldn't we have lost our bodies?" Tien questioned. King Yama was frustrated by now. It was a really long day, and he didn't feel like answering any more questions. "Just proceed along this way, your questions will be answered later." Three people left, leaving one person behind. "Piccolo, what are you still doing here?" "I have a personal question for you," he said in a stern voice. Yama sighed. From what he had heard, Piccolo was as stubborn as they could get, so he would answer. "Continue." "After I died, what happened?" Piccolo asked, trying not to even let any seeps of interest leak out. "Those two kids you trained, what were their names?" "Gohan and Naruto. They became enraged from what I heard. They got so angry that their power increased. That's when that Naruto kid started saying something about making Earth his home. That's when the two of them blasted a technique to destroy that Nappa guy." Piccolo was already gone by the end of what Yama was saying, and he was smirking, maybe even bordering a smile at what he heard. "Naruto, Gohan, you better not die anytime soon." It just went to show that even strict and stern masters had soft spots for their students. "Goku." Goku gave a hard punch to Vegeta's gut, in turn causing his opponent to move into a fast counter in the form of a Kai disperse, pushing Goku away. The two moved up close to each other and engaged in a furious clash of punches and kicks. Gohan wasn't sure whether the battle was getting to them or if they truly didn't, because his dad and Vegeta weren't dodging the other's attacks. They just keep going back and forth. The commentary had come from Krillin. Naruto silently nodded in agreement. He was starting to understand what he saw before. Gohan's dad and Vegeta's fight, they both are fighting equally. Naruto was sure of it, but something else wasn't right. Vegeta was slowly but surely gaining an upper hand. "Gohan," Naruto whispered so only he and Gohan could hear it. "Yay?" Naruto wasn't sure how to continue. It wouldn't be easy to tell his friend that his dad looked to be losing, but luckily his and Gohan's attention turned back to the fight to see Vegeta begin a major counter. Vegeta breezed through a kick from Goku and brought his fist into Goku's gut. Goku staggered backwards in a dazed state, allowing Vegeta to proceed into another attack. A double axe handle brought Goku straight into the ground, right near Gohan, Naruto, and Krillin. A thick layer of smoke covered Vegeta's view of Goku, but he already knew that the damage had been done. His cocky smirk plastered itself upon his face as he levitated from above. The trio hid, knowing full well that Goku was bound to spot them. Naruto head poked out to see Goku lying on the floor looking helpless, and Gohan resisted the urge to rush out and help his father, though when he slowly stood back up, something from the corner of his caused his head to pop to their direction. The thing he spotted was a tuft of blonde hair, and Naruto knew it was over. Naruto, not being one to try and act like he wasn't there, stood up and approached Goku. Goku-san, Naruto stuttered, ready to feel the wrath of a pure Saiyan. Goku frowned at Naruto using the honorific, but replaced the look with anger. Naruto, what are you doing here? I told you to head back with Gohan and Krillin to Master Roshi's. Naruto looked his head down in shame, but brought his face up again to respond to Goku. I came here to help. I just don't think it's right to let only one other person fights by themselves, because if that's how it is, everyone else will just be weak forever, and if you want to save your precious people, weak isn't an option. Goku could respect Naruto for doing that because truthfully his heart was in the right place, but on another hand, Goku didn't want them to fight to lower the risk of them getting hurt. From where Gohan and Krillin were standing, Gohan was making approaches to reveal himself to his father, but Krillin insisted otherwise. Wait a minute, Gohan, we have to hide. Your dad doesn't know we're here, and the less he knows the better, so he can fight better. Gohan sighed and moved his sight between Goku and Naruto before he gave up trying to free himself. Gohan felt his wild hair that grew from the one ear flick to the side from the wind. The wind was picking up quickly as he looked to see Naruto move back, and the smoke that one was present vanished. Goku once again stared Vegeta from below. I see you took your time. Goku raised an eyebrow, wondering whether he was implying that he heard their conversation, but shrugged it off and began to get back on the assault. Goku slightly eased his muscles before he removed the layers of his shirt. This now in turn showed just what physical looks Goku had gained through training, and it was surely showing off. Heikin X2. Goku screamed and let brilliant red Kai wash over his body. With blinding speeds, the warrior approached Vegeta and swung his held back arm. Vegeta, who hadn't braced for the impact, was sent flying across the field, only to then be knocked downwards from a kick to the chin. The battlefield is trembling at Goku's power, rocks broke apart and flew into the sky, giving clues to aftershocks of Kai output. Goku dashed to get behind Vegeta and released a prepared Kai blast that made direct contact. Goku heaved a giant held breath as he lowered himself to the ground. He wasn't sure if he could keep it up and somehow protect Naruto all at the same time. His head moved up to see Vegeta's infuriated face. He was humiliated by what he called a low class any normal Saiyan would understand, but then again Goku wasn't normal. To think he'd be able to draw blood from a noble. Vegeta thought in rage. No, I can't let him live, I'll destroy him and this entire planet. I won't let you get away, not after what you've done to me. I take you and these whole planet out in one go. The prince's hand moved behind him in a similar and different position of the stance for the Kamehameha. He'll turn you into space trash. Gallic gun. And out of nowhere a purple Kai wave forced itself out of Vegeta's palm, causing Goku's eye to widen. I only have one choice. Buddy, don't fail me now. Heikin X3. Goku yelled and could tell that somewhere into the otherworld King Kai was cursing. Goku now took the position of the Kamehameha and charged up as much pure and concentrated Kai as he could see that the Vegeta's Kai wave was approaching. Kamehameha. Goku blue Kai wave blazed into the sky and met with Vegeta's Gallic gun, causing the two's waves to clash and enter a beam struggle, and even though Goku's wave was released, he would have to keep adding energy until Vegeta either gave up or he dominated it. Naruto and Gohan both were put in awe from the flashing show of techniques and power. They were beginning to realize the massive difference between everyone's powers. The Kamehameha seemed to be a very strong move and both of them hoped to learn it. So cool. They both said in sync with utter awe. If one would look close enough and manage to block out the immense light from the attacks, they would see stars in their eyes. It was due to their shock that they didn't notice Goku's attack being pushed back, showing that Vegeta was gaining the advantage. Goku was never one to panic in situations like this, so he managed to try the first thing that came to his battle-weary mind, boosting the Heikin. Forgive me, King Kai. Heikin X4. The new boost in power was also displayed in the Kamehameha as the blue Kai wave was given a bigger pump of energy. Naruto and Gohan watched with amazement as Goku's new powered Kamehameha pummeled through the Gallic gun and hit Vegeta dead on. Goku finally let go of his energy wave and let it move Vegeta into the sky. Goku, you did it. Krillin shouted to his lifelong friend. He rushed up to him with a huge amount of relief. I never doubted you, not for one moment. Hey Krillin. Next was Gohan, who grinned at what he saw. Dad. Goku's face was bewildered now at the happy faces of everyone. What are you guys doing here? We wanted to help you, Goku, but it seems you took care of it yourself. Krillin wholeheartedly said with a smile. I didn't know you guys were here. A slightly husky voice called from behind them. Yajirobe, I didn't expect you to try and help us, much less try and fight. Krillin said while taking up an humorous face. Well, that doesn't matter now, what does matter is that Goku took out that Saiyan guy. The now confirmed Yajirobe spoke. Yay, that was awesome. Naruto shouted with stars in his eyes, even after training he was still a kid. You guys don't really believe that I finished, do you? Goku questioned with concern. Because he's not done yet. Goku took several deep breaths. What do you mean, Dad, you just hit him with that attack? Gohan questioned. Now not the time to discuss this, get out of here before it's too late. Goku warned before his head moved towards the sky. It's too late for that. Vegeta's voice carried. I knew you would be planning for our arrival, but I had no idea you would so far as to destroy the moon itself. I didn't destroy the moon. It right, Naruto? Yep, but he never told us why. Who would have known? That explains why I haven't seen the moon for so long. Vegeta comically grew a vein on his head. Stop ignoring me. He barked and everyone's attention turned to him. It's too bad that we Saiyans have the ability to create artificial moons. You're going to be wishing that you still had your tail Kakarot. Vegeta in a swift motion brought his hand upwards around his chest level and concentrated. Only seconds later a wide orb of Kai manifested in his palm. Vegeta motioned his hand upwards and launched the orb into the sky, and with the close of his hand the orb expanded. Everyone looked upwards as Gohan and Naruto's tails subconsciously wagged with curiosity. Vegeta's smirk carried on to the group as he began to change, similar as when Naruto and Gohan had during their training. Vegeta's mouth moved outwards and grew sharper teeth while his body expanded to great heights. Fur already had accumulated across his whole body. Krillin's eyes grew wide at the familiar sight, a sight he had saw what seemed to happen thousands of years ago, even though the memory was still very vivid. Within minutes Vegeta's transformation was done as Goku, Krillin, and Yajirobe looked on with complete shock. Gohan, Naruto, get away now. Goku yelled, but his shout fell on deaf ears. He turned to Naruto and Gohan, but saw that they were standing motionless while looking at the artificial moon created by Vegeta. Krillin turned to looked at them too, and once again his eyes grew wide. No way. Krillin yelled as his line of sight led to Naruto and Gohan's tails. Krillin moved to snap the two out of their trance, but it was too late. Fur already was growing on their body, and they were increasing in size. What the? Vegeta took a chance to see why everyone's attention had switched and gained a shocked look at what he saw. Those runts had tails. Vegeta thought and mentally cursed himself. Now on the battlefield stood 3 giant apes and 3 normal-sized people. We have to get as far as possible right now. Krillin yelled. Goku looked at Krillin questioning his choice of actions, but Krillin continued. I'll explain later, so come on. With that the two flew away from the site, both concerned about the turn of events with Yajirobe far from the battlefield already. In the center was the calm before the storm, nobody was moving and everything was quiet. Vegeta was subconsciously sweating, he could handle one, but facing 2 great apes was a whole other league of its own, including the fact that they probably didn't have any control. Though their clothes were ripped and most distinguishable features of them were gone, there was still one trait which made to easily identify which was Gohan and which was Naruto. Whisker marks, a patch of fur was noticeably darker in 3 areas on each cheek, which imitated Naruto's whisker marks. Krillin, you know what happened? Goku asked and received an answer in the form of a nod. Let's see where I should begin. Only a minute after Krillin finished explaining Goku's previous transformations over the years, Goku was finally piecing some things together. So that's why Grandpa told me never to look at the full moon. I must have been the one who killed Goku. I'm going in there to help. I don't want anything to happen to Naruto and Gohan, especially now that the Dragon Balls are gone now. Goku stood up and flew back into the center of the battlefield with a serious look. He approached the 2 apes which were Gohan and Naruto and spoke. Gohan, Naruto, it's me. Gohan and Naruto stood silent while Vegeta looked on with curiosity. You guys have to keep control, but Goku's words were brought to a stop by Naruto bringing down his now giant hand at Goku, knocking the pure Saiyan down. Naruto and Gohan began pounding their chest just as an ape would do and roared. The battle was finally starting. Gohan jumped in the air and moved his ape-like body towards Vegeta. When he was much closer to him he swung his arm down to attack but was parried by a grab courtesy of Vegeta. The Saiyan, who now had grasped of the situation, literally pushed Gohan backwards and opened his mouth. Naruto, who still stood where he first stood, began moving upwards at a weirdly fast pace. For a giant ape he sure was fast to say the least. The Demi-Saiyan ape didn't stop as he approached Vegeta and tackled him down to the ground. As odd as it was, it seemed as if Naruto and Gohan nodded at each other before turning their attention back to Vegeta. It was a pretty amazing sight. Even in a new form with not the least ounce of self-control, the two's demi-Saiyans' friendships held strong. "You runts, I'll get you for that," the ape Vegeta shouted. He held his mouth wide open and allowed Kai to concentrate in that area right before a condensed blast of Kai shot out of his mouth. The ape resembling Naruto took the blast head on. Smoke appeared, and by the time it disappeared, the demi-Saiyan was still walking towards Vegeta. Behind Naruto, the ape Gohan opened his own mouth and launched a Kai blast of his own. Vegeta, the alleged target, easily deflected the attack. Though something collided with his face anyway, Naruto's fist. By the time Vegeta put the piece together, it was already too late as Naruto and Gohan's counterattack began. Naruto grabbed Vegeta's hand and swung it to the side, causing the Saiyan noble to be tossed over in that direction. Vegeta laid helpless on the floor with no defense or any means of helping himself in the very likely case of Naruto and Gohan attacking him. Gohan turned the opposite way of Vegeta and picked up a normal-sized rock for a giant. Throwing it allowed him to make direct contact with the prince. "Damn it," Vegeta cursed. It was his one miscalculation that caused him to be currently losing. He hadn't expected anyone other than Goku to be on the battlefield, especially the demi-Saiyans. Now because of that he was suffering the consequences of his own. "Wait, that's it," Vegeta thought as a cocky smirk grew on his face. "We'll see who's roaring after this." The pure Saiyan's hands moved into the side and glow a soft purple aura before once again a purple Kai wave shot out of it. The attack wasn't strong enough to take out either of the demi-Saiyans, but it got the job done of distracting the two. The ape in Saiyan armor stood up with a grunt. The pain Vegeta had been inflicted in battle was catching up fast. Over to the sidelines were still Goku and Krillin, their eyes were intensively focused on the battle. "Man, I wish I could help out, but I can't really do anything against a giant ape." "Yay, I know, I wish I could help too, but ugh." Goku's attempts at standing up were futile. That slam from Naruto really dealt some damage. "But I really can't do anything right now, our best bet is to leave everything up to Naruto and Gohan." The idea of course didn't sit well with Goku himself, but there was no other possible solutions. All he could do now were hope that Naruto and Gohan can help him out of this mess. Vegeta darted upwards to slam Naruto in the ground and succeeded slightly. Though the throw he just made was a success, Naruto managed to slip slightly, causing Vegeta to wobble, once again leaving him wide open. He felt something come in brute contact with his body, turning his falling body to the side. He saw Gohan tackle him. Though if Vegeta was angry he didn't show it because the noble just raised his hand in the air and began an attack. Quickly a condensed wave of Kai moved into the sky, but oddly wasn't aimed at Gohan nor Naruto. Its target was the artificial moon Vegeta had created less than a half hour before. Vegeta chuckled loudly as he began to shrink. His plan had succeeded. "Now that that cursed moon is gone, I can take every single one of them out." He had to admit it would be easier taking them out in his great ape form, but with Naruto and Gohan, those chances were definitely lowered. Speaking of the two demi-Saiyans, both were laid on the ground unconscious, with clothes on. This was surprising since their ape transformation size increase caused their clothes to be ripped to shreds, but it was probably just an after effect of Piccolo continuously using his clothing materialization technique. Vegeta slowly walked up to Gohan and Naruto, holding a cocky smirk like he had just won the whole battle. But most people would think the same thing. Krillin, Goku, and Yajirobe were MIA, Gohan and Naruto were unconscious, and all the other Z fighters were either too weak or dead. "I'll kill both of you right now," Vegeta shouted his intentions. He picked up Naruto by the scruff of his neck scarf and moved his Kai-infused hand backwards. "Now die." The hand moved in a straight line to Naruto's chest, but the attack was stopped when someone grabbed his head. "I won't let you hurt my friend." Gohan's voice traveled. "So you want to die first, so be it." Vegeta moved his arm out of Gohan's grasp and pushed it to take a fatal blow. "I won't let you hurt anybody precious to me," Naruto's voice called. "But how is this possible? Most Saiyans with no control on their great ape form usually are rendered unconscious after going back to normal." Gohan and Naruto jumped back from Vegeta and took stances much better than their sloppy stances before Piccolo's training. Vegeta hid any surprise or shocked emotion on his face and replaced it with his smirk. Naruto smirked as well and ran up to Vegeta in a quick motion. With the snap of his hand a fist trailed to hit Vegeta's gut but was parried with a grasp of his arm. Vegeta used his other arm to hit Naruto in the face, but Naruto's other arm came to block the attack. The two were at a stronghold with both their arms in grasp of their opponent. Vegeta was knocked to the side from a kick from Gohan, moving him away from the two of them. Vegeta would have to change his tactics to take the two of them on at once. When one was in trouble, the other would come to attack the distracted enemy, and bam, they would have a great counterattack. He would have to separate them before going into a full offense. Gohan moved up to land another kick, but it was blocked by Vegeta's arm. The two went into a parry of attacks. Back and forth they went, kick and punches landed at minimal rate, but the damage would still leave some effect. Naruto moved in on Gohan's side and entered the parry, turning it into a 2-on-1. The rate of punches and kicks which landed increased for Naruto and Gohan, but decreased for Vegeta. The parry continued for only a few more seconds before Vegeta extended both of his arms towards them. The light sound of Kai charging in his hands was heard, and Gohan and Naruto finally caught a clue of what was happening, but it was too late. The purple Kai blast hit both of them head-on, which in result brought up a thick layer of smoke. All three of them split away, leaving every single one of them wide open, but Vegeta had a larger advantage with the experience factor and having dealt with situations like this before. Vegeta moved in close to the unaware Gohan, who held his guard up. Vegeta stood right in front of him and ducked down and leaned a fist back. In a smooth and silent motion, he landed an attack on Gohan's gut and proceeded with another which made Gohan fly across the battlefield, literally not knowing what hit him. Vegeta took a chance to look at his chipped armor and cursed inwardly. "I'll kill every last one of them." Now that Gohan was out, it would be much easier to take out Naruto. Goku looked at the current events of the battle with concern. It was looking pretty bad at this rate, and after the artificial moon was destroyed, it just made everything worse. "Goku, you have to have some other thing you learned from that King Kai?" Krillin asked. He didn't want to be negative, but at this rate things weren't looking good. Vegeta moved in to finish off Naruto before the smoke wore off, and it wasn't hard to find the blonde. Quickly he slammed his fist into Naruto's gut and launched him away just as the smoke dispersed. Naruto and Gohan were down for good this time, or Vegeta thought. He turned his head back to Naruto and saw a thick pillar of dark red-orange Kai shoot into the sky. What the hell is that? In less than a second a red blur moved in front of Vegeta and it would be easily identified as Naruto with a few physical changes. For starters, his whisker marks were much more visible, his hands had sharp nails, his teeth became sharp, his eyes became red, and his pupils were slits. The most noticeable trait was that dark red Kai surrounded his whole body. Naruto's roar shook everybody's ears. Naruto brought his right hand up and quickly brought it down right in front of Vegeta, causing a large gash to appear on Vegeta's chest. The Saiyan Prince fell down to the ground unconscious. Naruto didn't stop as he gave another ear-shattering roar and began tearing up anything in his side of the battlefield. "Goku, what's happening?" Krillin shouted and questioned. He was relieved that Vegeta was out, but now that Naruto was going berserk everything was askew. "Krillin, buy me sometime," Goku quickly said with a serious face. "Wait, Goku, you know what's happening." "Yes, but now isn't the time to be explaining things. Now go before he does something else," Goku addressed. Krillin went on to quickly go into action while Goku extended both his hands into the air and closed his eyes. "Please give me some of your energy." Honestly, Goku didn't want to use this technique on anyone, especially a comrade, but King Kai had told him the danger of the situation they were now in and he didn't want anyone to get hurt because of it. "Hey Naruto." Krillin shouted only a little far away from Krillin. "It's me, Krillin." Naruto didn't give any attention and continued destroying the land. This kept up for several minutes until Krillin had had enough of it and launched a Kai blast at Naruto. Naruto's head snapped over to Krillin, causing the bald man to move backwards while sweating bullets. "Remember me, Naruto, it's good old Krillin, the best guy in the world." But of course Naruto didn't recognize him. Naruto moved in to grab Krillin, but his head turned behind the bald man just in time. Krillin's eyes wandered to where Naruto was looking before he spotted Goku with white Kai surrounding his hands. "Krillin, move out of the way," Goku yelled. Krillin held no objections and followed. "It's a spirit bomb and you're going to eat it," Goku yelled and launched what could be one of his most powerful attacks. Naruto looked at the wide irregular shaped Kai attacks and did nothing even though alarms in his body were going off. When it collided with him, sparks flew. His body was lifted sky high until he disappeared from sight. Only a few seconds later Naruto's body came crashing down to the ground without any of the new features he had just gotten. "It's finally over," Goku sighed before falling down to the ground on his own. That battle sure made him tired, and now that the battle was concluded he would be taking some rest. Krillin followed along and was knocked out cold too. He had taken some major damage in that battle, even though it wasn't anything compared to Naruto, Gohan, or Goku's damage, but it still hurt like hell. Had Krillin or Goku been awake for a minute longer, they would have seen Vegeta reach into his pocket and pull out a remote and click a button. To be beaten by a low class and a hybrid. Vegeta thought out loud, too weak to show any of his anger. His space pod appeared in a matter of minutes. He crawled into it and looked at Naruto before noting his blonde hair. It oddly resembled something he had seen as a kid, but he cast it aside. "I'll get Kakarot and that brat another day." And with that the space pod flew into the sky and left the atmosphere. That day Vegeta swore vengeance upon the Saiyan known as Kakarot aka Goku and the Demi-Saiyan Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto's eyes fluttered for a few seconds before they rested again. "I don't feel like getting up right now," Naruto Uzumaki thought as he snuggled in bed. "What's this?" He opened his eyes to see that he was in a hospital room. "When did I get here?" The hospital room looked extremely similar to the one back in Konoha. "Weren't we fighting those Saiyans?" The questions just came coming up and it was starting to hurt his head. So standing up he realized he was bandaged all across his body. He peeled one off to see what wounds he had gotten. Wonder why they put bandages when it doesn't look like I got any wounds. The Demi-Saiyan moved to exit his room before he was stopped by someone entering the door. Krillin. Naruto shouted with a grin. Like Naruto, he was in a hospital gown and he had bandages, but he also had crutches. Seems like you're awake, Naruto. Krillin gave a smile of his own back too. Now come on, let's go to the other room, Gohan was pretty worried about you. Naruto gave a sincere smile. He was only awake for a minute, but it felt so peaceful, it was something he wasn't used to. Wait, Krillin, is anyone else there? Naruto asked as they quickly approached the door. Yay, some of them really want to meet you. Nodding his head, Naruto opened the door slowly, and when he looked inside he saw that the room was filled with people. If Naruto's memory served him correctly, he recognized two of them from the house he was at during the Raditz incident. Naruto was awake, so I decided to just bring him along with me. Krillin addressed. Well, go on, introduce yourself. Krillin pushed Naruto forward by a small margin, forcing the boy to do it. Naruto bowed awkwardly before moving back up and sheepishly scratching his head. Hi, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto's eyes were closed so he couldn't really see any movement, but he could hear. What he heard was somebody running up to him. He opened his eyes when he felt someone pull him into a hug. Thank you so much. Naruto raised his eyebrow at who was thanking him. He didn't recognize her. Thank you so much for saving my baby. Naruto sweat dropped and then looked over to Gohan, who was blushing. So you must be Gohan's mom. Naruto managed to talk out of the gigantic hug he had gotten. She nodded before putting him down. I'm Kai, Gohan's mom. Thank you so much for saving my baby. Naruto guessed she was talking about Gohan. Mom, you're embarrassing me. Gohan set out from under the cover and Naruto gave a sincere laugh, something that he hadn't done in a while. An old man moved up to introduce him and gave a toothy smile. Hi, I'm Rashi. Naruto gave a smile back before the geezer leaned to whisper to him. Be careful around Kai, she's like a devil if you get on her bad side. Naruto's head flicked to the side when he heard Kai pull something out and he looked to see an irregular shaped weapon known as a gun. She pulled the trigger and began shooting at the geezer, giving Naruto another opportunity to laugh along with everyone else. The next person who moved to introduce themselves was the blue-haired woman who he had seen about a year ago. The only difference now was that she had shaggy, long hair now. I'm Bulma, like Rashi, she moved in to whisper to him. Stay away from Rashi, he's bad influence. She leaned away and gave a smile before turning around and throwing the hermit who Anne leaned on to look at her while she had leaned down. Rashi, you pervert. Naruto didn't understand, but he laughed anyway. When all the introductions were over, Naruto moved over to sit down on a chair while the door to the room opened. He looked at who entered to see a doctor walk in and look at him. What are you doing here? Huh? You shouldn't be walking around with your injuries. The doctor addressed. But I feel fine, see, look at under the bandages. Naruto lifted up his shirt and removed the bandage to show signs of closed wounds. The doctor's eyes widened. But those wounds were supposed to last a week, you must have a monstrous recovery rate. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he replied. It's not monstrous, I was just been born with it. Naruto's voice was a little harsher, but the boy didn't notice it. Everyone noticed but didn't speak about it. The doctor looked at Naruto like he was crazy before rushing out of the room. Naruto shrugged it off, not noticing what had happened. Hey, speaking of the wounds we got, how did we beat Vegeta? You don't remember? Krillin said and looked to see Naruto shake his head. We beat him together. It's hard to explain, but we all used a giant energy blast to beat him, but he got away. Goku said hastily. Everyone raised an eyebrow at the story, except for Gohan and Naruto, who frowned. Man, it sucks that we can't remember it. Everybody sweat dropped at how easy it was to lie to Naruto and Gohan, even though it didn't feel right to keep secrets. Hey Krillin, you said something about being able to revive the others. Gohan questioned. Oh yeah, that Vegeta guy said that Piccolo and Kami came from another planet, so if Kami made the Dragon Balls on Earth, isn't it possible for the Namekians on their home planet to make similar ones? Krillin explained. That makes sense, but still we don't even know where their planet is even located. Bulma brought up a pretty good point. I guess that's my cue to come in. A distant voice said. Oh hey, it's King Kai. Goku exclaimed. That's how he sounds like. Krillin deadpanned. Yep, I bet you think it sounds like a perfect comedic voice. King Kai replied. That's one way to put it. Krillin silently said. Well, putting my hilarious jokes aside, I know the exact coordinates of the planet Namek, the name of where Kami and Piccolo came from. King Kai continued and gave the coordinates, but the only one who understood it was Bulma. Even if we know the coordinates, we'll never be able to make it there in our lifespan. Using the fastest ship on this planet, it would take over 100 years to get there. Bulma had pulled out a calculator and showed them the scientific fact, not that anyone understood what bunch of numbers she inserted. But what if we had another ship? Naruto brought up. Everyone looked at him like he was crazy, but he continued. There's the ship that brought me to Earth. Naruto smiled. And then there's the one the other Saiyan brought. Gohan spoke up. The only thing we have to do is bring them here, but how? Krillin questioned. Well, I have two of them, one dropped from that Raditz guy, meaning that it must be the one that brought Naruto to Earth, and the other one was brought to the Capsule Corporation after discovery. Bulma said with a nod of her head. Still though, which button brings them here? Rashi questioned. I know that the big gray button self-destructs it if the control pad on the ship and the remote are the same. The blonde quickly advised. Lucky he said that I almost pressed it, Bulma thought as she tensed up, handling intergalactic devices wasn't easy. Hold on a second, Bulma, isn't that a pod right there? Master Roshi asked as he pointed forward. On the TV was a newscast reporting. We still don't have any idea what type of technology was used to create it, but it appears to be from another planet, as the people who arrived in it had moved in from outer space, the newscaster said. Naruto stared at the TV strangely and raised an eyebrow. Are people in a box? He wondered out loud. The whole room sweat dropped at the reaction, especially people who had known Goku when he was younger. He's making the same assumption that Goku made when I first showed it to him, Bulma thought as she remembered some old memories, which was when she and Goku had just started gathering the Dragon Balls for the first time. Of course there was multiple times they had done it, but that was enough reminiscing for one day. Oh yeah, I forgot you weren't from this planet. I guess they didn't have this type of machinery there. Krillin slightly pondered before moving on. That's a television or TV for short, you can watch things on it, it can entertain you, tempts you to buy things, or be informational. Naruto nodded with excitement, though the last bit of information wasn't something Naruto would do anytime soon. Everyone gave a sincere smile at Naruto's innocent curiosity, even through all the fighting he was still only about 5 years old. Aha, I got the right button. Bulma exclaimed with pure excitement. Everyone's eyes wandered to the newscast to see the space pod break through the glass and fly into the sky. That's when Gohan came up with a conclusion. If the pod comes to where the remote is, wouldn't it go into the hospital too? Gohan's logic seemed legit to Naruto, so the Demi-Saiyan nodded in agreement. Bulma's eyes widened at how she hadn't even thought about something that was common sense. The sound of something zipping at high speeds through the sky was heard, indicating that the pod was approaching so quickly. Bulma raced to throw the remote out the window, and lucky for her, it landed there and nobody is standing around there. She sighed before she decided to bring back the topic of Namek, not really caring about everyone looking at the space pod with crazy eyes. It seems like they can only fit one person, but with some modifying we can rebuild it and only use one pod. But anyway, who is going to Namek? The question had just dawned on everyone. Well, Bulma, you have to go or else we won't even be able to get off the planet. Krillin nodded with a slight smile. Well, I'm not going alone. Bulma shouted what to most people as common sense, well, at least people without a sense of adventure, and for most Z fighters the sense was strong. Haha, of course Bulma, that's why I'm coming too. Krillin confirmed. If you wouldn't mind, can I go? Naruto nervously asked. Sure Naruto, all you needed to do was asking. Krillin affirmed, and Naruto was now grinning with pleasure before he frowned slightly. What about Gohan? Naruto turned his head to his friend looking for an answer the Demi-Saiyan was about to answer before someone cut him off. No son of mine is going to any other planet. The voice of Kai called. He needs to focus on his studies and going off to other planets isn't going to help, isn't that right Gohan? Naruto turned his head to his friend hoping that wasn't true, plus Naruto really hated studying. I want to go. Gohan shouted to his mother and Kai looked at him mouth agape. I want to help everyone else, plus I want to have fun with my friends. Kai looked at Gohan as if he was crazy. My son is becoming a rebel. Wait, he said something about friends. Kai thought. That was the first time Gohan had mentioned anything about friends because frankly 1 year ago Gohan didn't have any, especially none his age. Kai's eyes wandered over to Naruto before she closed her eyes in thought. Alright, you can go, Kai said, surprising anybody that really knew her. Alright. The two Demi-Saiyans exclaimed as they gave each other a high five. They began dancing and jumping and chanting. We're going to Namek. Over and over again with grins on their faces, and everybody including Kai grinned, even though she gave a one that held a little glint. But you're going to have to study while you're there. Kai condition caused everyone to sweat drop, of course she wouldn't just let him go like that. The same goes to you Naruto. Naruto stopped jumping around at that when a book was shoved into his arms. The Idiots or Foreigners Guide to Everything Earth. Why she had the book no one knew. No friend of my son is going to be an idiot. Kai quickly said, and Naruto just nodded. Ending off that note, factoring in the weariness and damage on the pod, it should take 7 days to rebuild it. Bulma smiled. I want to go to Namek too. Goku protested, but he had suffered some far gruesome injuries than the others, mainly because of his full-on battle with Vegeta and the extreme usage of the Kaioken. It would take a month or two to fully recover, and the Senzu beans would only be fully grown in a little less than a month. Face it, Goku, this time you aren't doing anything but getting some rest. And with that, Kai sat down next to Naruto and began knitting. Naruto smiled at how kind everyone here is really nice. Vegeta. The battle-injured Vegeta seethed, remembering what had happened on Earth. Taken down by a low-class and a hybrid, he wondered about the whole Red Kai thing, but honestly he didn't care. As soon as my healing is done, I'm heading straight back to that wretched planet. Vegeta's thoughts wandered back to Naruto. He held something familiar he hadn't seen in years. He held his head in frustration at the fuzzy thoughts he was getting. Flashback. Vegeta, hold up. A person shouted with eagerness. Vegeta memory couldn't exactly see his face, but all he could see was blonde, spiky hair. What do you want? A kid, Vegeta scoffed. Vegeta wore a normal Saiyan armor, except for the fact that he had a cape and the insignia near the upper right corner. Want to do something fun? The boy asked. Fun? My definition of fun probably doesn't fit yours unless you want to have a spar. Vegeta replied. Alright, a spar sounds fun. The boy replied. Vegeta smirked. He would have fun messing with a low class. Only minutes later the two were panting, and Vegeta could be seen smiling. Someone came into the room they were sparring, and the younger Vegeta turned around to see a man with a decent amount of hair who looked to be a younger Nappa. Vegeta, what are you doing with a low class? Nappa said. Shut up, Nappa. Now what's your name? Vegeta asked the kid, now seeing that Nappa's mouth was shut. The boy opened his mouth and spoke, but no matter what, Vegeta couldn't hear it. Flashback end. Vegeta shook his head as his took his head out of the clouds. There's no time for that, I have to focus on recovery, Vegeta grunted before he went to sleep. He still had some time before he would reach his destination. Hospital. Back on Earth, the group had settled down, with most of the others who weren't hospitalized returning home. Gohan had fallen back asleep after he and Krillin had learned that it would take 3 more days before they could leave, while Naruto only about a day, but the blonde insisted on staying until Gohan and Krillin were out. Right now the blonde Demi-Saiyan was watching Kai knit something. She looked over to see him watching, and she smiled. Want me to make one for you too? She asked, and the young boy shook his head no, he didn't want her to do anything she honestly didn't want her to do. It's fine, I was just about to finish one for Gohan anyway. Now what's your size? I don't know. He blankly said. Honestly, he didn't know himself. Haven't your parents ever told you? She said, and was surprised to see Naruto turn his head away from her. She could already feel a melancholic and tensed atmosphere rise from him. Mom, me and Naruto, Gohan began before he was interrupted. Naruto and I. Gohan didn't really care for the moment that he had been corrected. Naruto and I are the same size. Kai looked between Naruto and Gohan back and forth before nodding. She suspected fishy, but didn't ponder on it. Naruto looked at Gohan with a smile, and Gohan gave one back before going back to bed. Naruto's life in Konoha was something he didn't feel like bringing up, at least not now. Day later. Naruto was now sleeping in the same hospital room with Gohan and Krillin, since someone wanted to switch places as soon as possible. The blonde gently slept in the bed, pretty happy to let all the stress he had gotten in the battle to wash away. It was pretty early in the morning, but it wasn't visiting hours yet, so Kai wasn't there. Wonder what's going to happen when we leave the hospital, Naruto thought with a slight sadness. His face took a frown. Guess I'm going to have to live in the wild now. Naruto wasn't worried if he could handle living there, but actually he would be lonely. At least we're going to Namek together, and with that his thrill of adventure was replenished, and when the time would come it would come. Gohan shuffled in bed before poking his sleep head up. Naruto, are you okay? He asked, and Naruto nodded with a smile. Gohan looked back at him before giving a smile of his own and standing up. Somehow two could perfectly tell if the other was feeling bad. They didn't even need to say anything, they could just tell. It was a bond only true friends could really have. The Demi-Saiyans both looked at Krillin, who was snoring, indicating that he was sleeping. Gohan moved his attention to a bag filled with his clothes and pulled out something he had managed to hide. Found it. Gohan had pulled out the guy Piccolo had given the two and put it on. Lucky, I couldn't find mine after I woke up. Naruto sighed and whined, he really liked the guy too. Mine got mixed with your, Gohan said with a smile as he pulled up another out of the bag and threw it to his friend. Naruto took the guy and put it on. So comfy, Naruto thought as he slipped it on, and he and Gohan grinned at each other. Gohan, want to have a spar? Naruto asked, giving a smile. Yep, and we can even pick off from where we left off from last time. Gohan said, mentioning the spar they had had a year prior. That one ended in a tie, so they were pretty eager to see what their training had done to them, since they had spared before Piccolo gave them their training. But we can't do it in here or else people in the building will get hurt. The two grinned at that fact, just showing they were stronger than the average boy. The two moved to the large balcony of the hospital room and took stances before they began. Gohan quickly ran forward and jumped into the sky. The action allowed his body to be semi-propelled downwards. He extended his foot downwards to do a sky kick to Naruto, but the blonde sidestepped and crouched down to avoid the attack. When Gohan had made landing on the ground, the blonde swept his leg to the side, causing his fellow Demi-Saiyan to lose balance and fall. Seconds before landing on the ground, Naruto directed his leg in a roundhouse kick motion, making Gohan move into the sky. It was something he had seen Piccolo do. Gohan moved back to the ground and dashed straight back towards Naruto, aiming a punch which was quickly parried by the blonde's elbow. The two proceeded to exchange a flurry of attacks which each dodged with minimal effort. As both pushed each other away to end the exchange, Gohan thrust an open palm forward which broke Naruto's guard. He felt as though some imaginary pressure pushed him away. He could see Gohan smirk again and saw him move forward and aim a punch to his face. Gohan's attack made impact, allowing the boy to continue. Gohan motioned his legs up to sidekick the blonde, but the blonde quickly caught it and flipped backwards. The two Demi-Saiyans clanked at each other before in sync they put their two hands on their forehead. They began charging Kai into their hands in a not-so-familiar motion. They could both feel their capacity of energy they could power into the attack reach its limit. Sen. They both ceased the accumulation of energy. Both thrust their hands forward. The yellow Kai energy that had been stored up was released into energy waves. The two waves of Kai forced themselves into each other and struggled back and forth continuously. Both Demi-Saiyans kept supplying energy to their attack before they heard a shout. Gohan, Naruto. Both Demi-Saiyans gulped, knowing full well who had called them. It was Kai. They both moved their attention from their attack to her, seeing as she was right behind them. Since their attention had turned from their Masenko to her, the attack seemingly wiggled before an explosion was heard. Minutes later, the two Demi-Saiyans lay in their respective beds rubbing their butts in pain. Needless to say, Kai had given them a punishment for what they had did, and as an added plus they took some damage from the Kai explosion. "You two fought?" Goku questioned and exclaimed. The two boys nodded. "Who won?" Krillin asked. He was eager to know because honestly when they had fought Nappa and Vegeta, they seemed to be equal. "It was a tie," they said in unison. Krillin nodded before speaking again. "But you didn't use your full power, did you?" The two shook their heads with a light smile. "It doesn't matter how much power they used, as soon as they come back they'll be studying," Kai said, still knitting. Everyone's sweat dropped at what she said. Just then the door to the room was jerked open and the familiar blue hair of Bulma was in sight. "Alright, so my dad is rebuilding the space pod and he calculated the time it will take for us to get to Namek," Bulma said with pride. Naruto, Gohan, and Krillin looked at her, knowing the next piece of information was going to be vital. "He said it'll take about 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks if we have traffic." "Bulma, do you really think there is traffic in space?" Krillin deadpanned while Naruto and Gohan laughed. Yay Krillin, just make sure you're prepared, you two Naruto and Gohan," Bulma said, giving a smile. She exited only seconds later. Naruto smiled. "I can't wait to go to Namek," he thought. He was pretty hyped for it, but he could wait 5 to 6 more days. Next day. Only a few hours ago Naruto, Gohan, and Krillin learned that they could now leave the hospital for a few hours, but since they weren't scheduled to leave until the next day, they would have to be back by sunset. "Perfect timing, now you two can get a haircut," Kai said as she looked at the two's hair. Their hair was certainly longer than it was 1 year prior. Before their hair was pretty short, not reaching lower than the back of their neck, but now it reached their mid-back. Naruto frowned at her statement. He didn't like haircuts, especially the ones back in Konoha, they went pretty rough on him. Gohan sighed neutrally. It was only minutes later that Gohan and Naruto were now in casual clothes. Gohan wore a collar black t-shirt which was tucked into his black pants. Naruto wore something very similar, though his shirt was white. Both looked like they were dressed to be semi-formal, even though they were only going to a barber shop. "Now you look like gentlemen." Krillin laughed at their attire and Goku was trying to find a chance to breath. Only an hour later Gohan and Naruto were back and Krillin and Goku found themselves once again laughing. Gohan's hair was now in a bow-shaped style, though it reached over most of his forehead. Naruto's spiky hair remained, though it was pointed slightly more downwards. "Laugh if you want, but they look like young gentlemen," Kai said as Naruto and Gohan sighed. Next day. Naruto woke up with a frown on his face. It was finally the day they were scheduled to leave the hospital. "Guess I'll have to go back to the wild," Naruto thought. In the blink of an eye 2 hours had passed and now everyone except for Goku was signed out. Kai now stood outside with Gohan and Naruto. Krillin had already flown off. "See you in a couple of days," Naruto said, giving a half-sincere, half-fake smile. He moved himself up from the ground and prepared to fly off before a hand from behind. "Where do you think you're going?" Kai asked. Naruto didn't reply. "If you think I'm going to let you live in the wild then you're crazy," she said. You can stay at our house for the time being. Naruto and Gohan grinned and laughed. Alright. Gohan exclaimed. We still have 4 days before we have to go to Namek, we're going to have so much fun. Gohan said with cheer. 3 were in a taxi right now because walking all the way to Mount Paozu would take years. Naruto nodded and leaned in to whisper to Gohan. And maybe when your mom's asleep we can train. Gohan nodded. So do you think the Namekians are friendly? If they're anything like Piccolo, I'm sure they are. Gohan and Naruto's imagination began running wild. They began imagining what they looked like. Kai chuckled at the two's active imagination and she was pretty happy for Gohan now that he was making friends. She turned around now see that they were asleep. By nightfall the 3 had reached their house in the mountains. Naruto stepped in and grinned, this place looks great. Kai nodded before looking at the time. It's time for you 2 to go to bed. Naruto and Gohan looked at each other before going back to her. But we're not tired. They said in unison. She looked at them with a stern look before sighing. Just make sure not to stay up too long. And with that Kai went to her room and presumably fell asleep. That's the first time my mom's ever let me stay up. Gohan said as they sat on the couch. The sound of a stomach growling was heard from both their stomachs and they laughed before heading into the kitchen. Gohan opened the fridge to show a moderate amount of food in it. I've never seen so much food in a fridge before. Gohan looked at Naruto before remembering what Naruto had told him and Piccolo. I guess we can help ourselves. Gohan said as he took some food. Naruto's eyes caught something that caused his eyes to form stars. You guys have ramen. He exclaimed and instantly did the preparations and put it in the microwave. It would only take those diabolical 3 minutes to finish. Gohan laughed remembering Naruto tell him something about ramen when they were training with Piccolo, but he had never tasted it before. Is it really that good? Yep, it's the food of the gods. He said and grinned. I guess I'll try it. Gohan said and returned the grin right back. Minutes later, Gohan and Naruto were devouring their 6th bowl of ramen. Ramen is pretty good. Gohan exclaimed with cheer, he was already having a lot of fun. Naruto nodded before going to wash the bowl he used. I want to help Gohan's mom out, she won't regret letting me stay over, he thought with a determined attitude. -4 days later. Naruto and Gohan woke up and looked at each other with faces of excitement. Finally the day we go to Namek, Naruto thought with a grin. This is going to be awesome. Gohan exclaimed. The 2 quickly dressed into their purple guy and brought their bags filled with clothes, food, and books downstairs. Hold on, you 2 take those outfits off this instance. Kai screamed. Minutes later the 2 came back downstairs with the clothes Kai wanted them to wear. It made them look like students. I can see the look on Krillin's face right now. Gohan said. Needless to say, when everyone had gotten to Thikame house, Krillin was dying of laughter. Very young gentleman indeed. He said before he calmed down. Several minutes later the last occupant of the journey finally appeared, Bulma. Naruto and Gohan sweat dropped at her attire. She was wearing a spacesuit as she exited the large rounded spaceship behind her. So this is the spaceship? Gohan curiously asked. Bulma nodded. Well, hurry up and load your thing on. She said, and with the help of the Ox King, who Naruto had found out was Kai's father, they put the things on. I guess this where we leave, see you guys. Krillin said as he climbed aboard. Be careful you 2, be nice to those aliens, and study. She said amongst a bunch of other stuff. Naruto smiled. Kai was treating him as if he was a son of her own, even though he was residing in their house for 4 days before their journey. We will. Gohan said with a smile of his own. The 2 then entered the ship and closed the hatch. Inside, Gohan and Naruto looked in awe. It's so big. They both thought. Alright, ground air space rules. Bulma began. The trio looked at her before she began her list of rules. Alright, buckle. Bulma said as she clicked the button. The sound of the engine of the ship rung through everyone's ears as the ship began to shake. Wait, Bulma, we haven't put on our seatbelts. Krillin slightly panicked as the 3 of them rushed to put it on. Naruto and Gohan grinned at each other. They were hyped, they were going to a new planet with their friends, meaning not only would it be an adventure, an added plus is that they would have fun. But we can't forget what we're going there for. Gohan said as he gained a serious face. Naruto's face became serious and he nodded as well. Just you wait, Piccolo. They said with determination. The ship had finally lifted out of the Earth's atmosphere and into space, and this was very easy to indicate based on what the Demi-Saiyans were currently doing. Naruto and Gohan laughed as they pretended to swim now that we're in mid-air due to the zero gravity. I could get used to this. Naruto said before he fell to the ground face first. Ouch. We're not here for fun and games. Bulma advised, causing Naruto to scratch his head sheepishly and nodded in understanding. Now that everyone understands that, my dad installed a few features into the ship. She pointed to a control panel in the middle of the room. He installed a gravity-changing devices that affects only the main center of the ship. Not sure why, but only use it when I'm not there. Everyone nodded before she continued, knowing what the gravity machine could possibly do if used correctly. Bulma continued showing the lesser interesting features of the ship before she was done. Now the four stood lying around actually bored. Sure, going into outer space was incredible, but you'd have to occupy yourself. So bored. Gohan sighed, and Naruto gave a sigh of agreement. Hey Naruto, you mind if I ask you a question? Krillin asked, even though technically asking one anyway. Naruto nodded. He would do anything to kill some time. What was it like back on your home planet? Yeah, actually I want to know as well. Bulma added on. Naruto's face tensed up and he looked down. Gohan moved in to help out his friend. Maybe some other time, I guess. Gohan said hastily. It's okay Gohan, I guess I should tell them. Naruto awkwardly laughed even though he wasn't in a humorous mood. I didn't really like the people on my planet, at least the people where I lived. They were really mean to me and unfair. I didn't have any parents, so I had to live in an orphanage, but even then I wasn't treated. Naruto gripped his fist as if to draw blood from it. Sorry if I brought up bad memories. Krillin said after seeing Naruto say nothing else. Naruto just looked at Krillin and Bulma and smiled. No problem, there's no reason to keep my head in the past anyways. Naruto yawned and moved to his room and went to bed. It's all starting to finally make sense now. Krillin noted. What do you mean Krillin? Gohan asked. Remember what Goku told us about Naruto having some energy beast sealed within him? Bulma and Gohan didn't do anything and let Krillin continue. That must be why the people where he came from treated him like a monster. It wasn't even his choice whether he wanted it sealed within him though. The fighter said with slight anger. Gohan and Bulma nodded. They wouldn't let their judgment of the Demi-Saiyan be changed by that thing. Plus if they did that they would have ditched Goku for turning into a great ape years ago, but they didn't. The remaining three people yawned and decided to head off to sleep. They wouldn't ponder on that right now, but it was something they would definitely tell the blonde later. Naruto woke up early the next day or night. Either way now Gohan, Krillin, and him were awake. I want to test out that gravity machine, Goku said. He got that strong due to it. King Kai's planet is 10x normal gravity. Gohan and Naruto nodded with determined grins. Let's try it out. Within a few clicks of a button the monitor read 10. The trio's eyes widened as they felt the pressure that built up on their legs trying to bring them down. I guess my dad was right when he said he felt like lead. Gohan managed to speak out. Naruto laughed as he tried to slowly move his body with increased weight. This is nothing. Naruto spoke as he struggled to move his own body. What are you guys doing? Bulma called as she entered the room. She felt the built-up pressure and fell to the floor. Turn it off. She struggled to scream and needless output. Krillin followed. Next time tell me before you turn that thing on. Bulma scolded. Yes, Bulma. The trio replied, now having several bumps and bruises surround their body. Naruto, Uzumaki, Son Gohan, Krillin, and Bulma briefs knew one thing for sure, it may not be a boring trip after all. What if Naruto was brother of Goku in Dragon Ball? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.